Welcome back to DJ Coffee Talk.
Jack, who are we talking to today?
Anthony Souza, who goes by the stage name WHZLY.
Cool.
You want to hear a bit about him?
I would love to.
All right. He's a bass music DJ and producer based out of Los Angeles, California.
Cool.
He's actually, his manager is Stephanie Vanderbilt, who we've interviewed. As we both know, founded Subtle But True.
Yeah.
He's all the way out in LA. I don't know the story behind how they met. She might have brought that up in our conversation with her. I'd have to look back at the episode. Mm-hmm. But he's under her label, or not a label, under her management group.
Management company.
Yeah, management company / group. So that's how we got connected to him. A little bit, of research. I was looking into his bio through their website and just kind of looking a bit into his music. He's very bass heavy. He's a DJ and producer. He originally got into creating music. The interest at least started when he was in college. Professionally started doing it in 2018. So he's been at it for a couple of years.
Cool.
Very diverse discography.
It's a funky name.
It is. But a lot of versatility in his music. He's a very creative, high energy type of dude. His mission statement, actually, or something that he really orients himself around when he's an artist, is never let fear stand in the way of expressing who you are in the most fullest, most honest form.
Damn, that's beautiful.
It is
really cool.
Poetic, huh?
Yeah.
He's really a creative and free-spirited person, based off of what I've seen on him. Back to the discography. I mean, he's released on Buygore, which my dumbass thought that was Buygore for a second. Not related at all. It's like a label group that he released on Dim Mac, Music High Court, and Subcarbon Records. So he's getting some traction. He's getting himself into the scene. I'm sure part of that's, it's his talent mixed with, connecting and him hustling and being. Stephanie's a really great manager from what we've seen and just talking with her. So things are going well for him, or seem like they're on an upward positive swing for him.
Cool.
But as I said, free spirit, he's really centered around authentically self-expressing himself. It's circular, but authentically expressing himself. And a big thing for him is he's trying to move from the realm of professional to master. It's like one of his guiding principles or guiding things that he's centered around again. And then he said there's a quote he likes where the difference between the professional and the master is pain. I think it's just hours of honing his craft, and that's what he's doing right now.
That'll be interesting to talk to him about.
And he's just kind of, he wants to inject passion and love into what he does. One last thing I kind of wanted to touch on with him, which I thought was really interesting, is a quote directly from him. But he said, let us live our lives by expressing ourselves to the fullest with passion and with love, even if that means eating Parmesan out of a bottle with a spoon. I don't know where that's coming from, but we'll hopefully figure that out a bit when we talk with him. Seems like a character.
It starts out so professional. It seems like you could put it on a poster. Then it goes to eating Parmesan out of a can.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's like the duality,
All right, what song are we going to be listening to from? Clack.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think you told me this, but it's inspired based off of a movie he had watched. I forgot what movie it was, though.
Kingsman.
It was based off of a bank robbing scene.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's high energy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm excited to hear it.
Let's pull it up.
That's how it sounds when a gun go clap. Oh, that's how it sounds when a gun go clap. Clap, 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 clap. That's how it sounds when a gun go clap. Clap, 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 clap. Bandana and a b-ball cap. 360, the boy must rap. Oh, that's how it sounds when a gun go clap. And the boys run around with a b-ball rap. Everybody come with the arms out strapped, but they ain't gonna leave with the arms intact. All vexed out in my one bed flat. Got my TV remote going clap, clap, clap. Oh, that's how it sounds when a gun go clap. Clap, 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 clap. That's how it sounds when a gun go clap. Clap, 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 clap. Oh, that's how it sounds when a gun go clap. That's how it sounds when a gun go clap.
I feel like I would just eat a bag of Doritos and not wash my hands. That touch everything in a thrift shop. That's what they make people want to do.
When the gun go clap, 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 clap. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's how it sounds when the gun go clap, clap, clap. Yeah. Yeah. When the gun go clap, 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 clap.
So that was WHZLY's song titled Clack, an absolute banger. And we actually got the inside scoop that he's currently working on a VIP version of this track. So we're getting pretty amped to hear him play it out in his upcoming sets later this year. Also, in other massive news, Anthony earned himself a spot on Bass Rush's Prophecy Compilation Volume 5 with his track Stutter that was released on February 4th of this year. It's a bombastic track that's just in your face and fun and underlined with that ground rumbling bass that seems to be becoming part of the signature WHZLY sound. Here's a quick clip of Stutter, but if you want to hear more, you're going to have to go to his Spotify and play it out because it is a great track and he needs to get the plays for this.
Did I fucking stutter, motherfucker?
As I'm sure you're starting to see, this guy is an incredibly talented producer, but what you may not know about him is that he has a great ear for music as well. And he let us know that he's going to be starting his own playlist of songs on Spotify, so be on the lookout for that. And without further delay, here's our in-depth interview with Anthony Souza, the beautiful mind behind WHZLY.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers. We are here with WHZLY, Mr. Anthony Souza, LA-based DJ and producer. We're incredibly happy to have you on. We want to start the interview off a little bit differently today by doing a traditional game of rhyme, get the juices flowing a little bit. Jack, you look like you're staring off in the distance. So
No, it's just my face.
I want you to start with the word, and then we're going to go around and try to keep this rhyme going as long as possible. And Anthony, being the professional, you're the one that's going to be the referee. If somebody says something that's off or doesn't rhyme, then you got to call it. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So I'm starting.
Yeah, you start with the word.
All right. Bike.
Bike. Trike.
Like.
Psych.
Dyke.
Oh! But probably now. Interview's over.
Fizzle out. Mike.
You said we already said Mike.
You said Mike.
Yeah, he didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah.
Like.
I said like. Gotcha, bitch.
What's the consequence?
Gotta drink coffee.
Okay, fair.
Cheers.
All right, Anthony, we were supposed to, life gets in the way, but we were supposed to be recording this on Halloween, which I'm actually really happy we didn't because the day of Halloween was really rough for us, so we appreciate this getting rescheduled, but
No problem.
we wanted to know if you have any particularly scary stories since 'tis the season, we're in spooky season. And,
Where we were.
We were. I think it's still spooky. I mean,
It's not. It's
like fall.
a season of thanks, man. What are you talking about? We're not spooky.
Yeah, I think we have another week before the season of thanks.
The pumpkins around.
Yeah, often after Halloween, you immediately move into Christmas. That's usually the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's usually just like, here's some lights. Here's some
Yeah, exactly.
start time. We have another holiday in between.
Exactly.
That kid. I do actually. I have one that's kind of somewhat spooky. When I was probably about 1 year old, if that. It was there was a famous earthquake here in Northridge. It was the 1994 earthquake. It's actually where I still live here at the moment. And I was a baby, and I was in my crib. This is before the earthquake was happening. And I was always a good sleeper according to my parents and things like that. And I was crying heavily through the night. And they got me up. They tried feeding me a little bit of milk, a little this. Might have stopped. Put me right back in the crib. They laid in bed. I started crying again. It took me out. They're like, why is he crying so much? This kid never cries. What's going on? I mean, I cried, but not as much as I guess I was this night. Put me down again. Same thing. We're walking around the house like, what is going on? And as the third time I got up, the 1994 earthquake struck, and a wardrobe fell and crushed on my cradle, like on my, the thing I slept in. Right?
While you were out?
Yeah, while I was out.
Oh,
and the earthquake was happening, and it was devastating. It was huge. It was like I think that it was a 6 point something, like a 6.2 earthquake. It was a big one in Northridge. Yeah, there was some deaths and things like that. But I just thought that was creepy because it was like I was a dog that can like sense the earthquake like before it's happening, you know. And
as a baby, you knew you're like, give me the fuck out of this.
Like something is wrong.
I'm like, this is not my time. I just came out of the uterus.
I just got incarnated. None of this is not happening.
Exactly. But yeah, that was kind of a creepy one that at least I heard of. But yeah.
That's a trip. Did you say you had like a scary one too, or no?
Oh yeah. So there was one when I was actually like 7, and I was in a bath, and my dad was fixing like a towel rack, and the towel rack was made out of like granite, and there was a moment where he was setting it up, and I was about to finish my bath, and he drops it, and it just shattered. And I didn't think anything of it, and I'm getting out of the bath, and I guess, from my knowledge, there was something, like a piece in there, and I had no idea. And when I stepped my foot outside of the bath, I realized I split my artery because blood gushed up like to my nose, like at the rate of my heart rate. And I still have the scar. It's a big scar, and it just went. I stepped out and went, and then another second. What's going on?
Oh my god!
And I almost passed out. And my dad almost passed. He's like, oh my god! And they get a towel, they wrap it, they close it, and I'm like getting rushed to the hospital. My whole family's looking at me. My sister's like, it's gonna be okay, and I'm like, am I gonna die? And I remember that I went to the hospital, and like they ended up like stitching me up or whatever, and I was like screaming because they were actually like stitching my arm.
Dude, I'm sorry.
And it was wild, and I just remember being like, I want cookies, and I remember I got like Famous Amos cookies at the end of it. But like it was like a near-death experience for sure, because I remember feeling like I was about to, I was like dreaming, and I was like, I just thought like I was like, oh god, I'm injured. When I looked back on it, I was like, bro, I was like dying. I had a severed artery that was like shooting like a fountain. And it's scary because there was blood everywhere.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, it looked like a gory horror film.
I've never seen that, like where somebody gets severed to the point where blood like actually squirts out.
Right.
Yeah. It was like a hose. It was like a.
Oh my god, man.
Because the artery is what leaves the heart, right? If I'm correct.
Yeah, so it's pushing all the blood out.
Yeah, so it's pushing all the blood out.
Oof.
Wow.
Were you kind of happy-go-lucky after that? You kind of shook it off.
I mean, I was.
God bless you, man. You're fantastic. That's awesome.
It was one of those things where it's like, that's a big boo-boo. I look at it now, it would have been like, I don't know, I probably would have become like a monk or something. I don't know. I would have been like near-death experience, would have had a relation. Who knows?
I can't imagine how much force has to be like to go from like all the way up to your face.
That's how powerful. Yeah, that's how powerful a heart is.
Yeah, and in fact, I was bending over too, and I was 7, so I was little. So it's like I'm bending over, and it like shoots up, and I'm like, what? Yeah. I can't imagine being my dad, being my father, and looking at that like a kid of yours. That'd be wild.
It'd be stressful. Yeah, it'd be horrific, man. I'm really excited to see how like positive you are after that too. It's like just you're laughing and glee about it too. It's fantastic. It's resilient. It's awesome.
Yeah, there you got it.
I have no idea what I would do if I had a kid and they're like that injured. Like that's how I know I'm not. I don't think I'm ready to be a parent.
No, I'm good with dogs.
Like my dog gets hurt and I'm freaking out. You know?
Step on it. Yeah. I stepped on a cactus once, and I said, I don't know, that man was like near crying.
It was. It was tough. But you like something. I think the parental instincts kicked in though, because like you just like focus in on what you have to do.
Yeah, take care of everyone.
It trains you, man, for a kid, especially. I think that's why a lot of people get dogs sometimes.
Yeah.
Either as a replacement or like, it just teaches you that responsibility.
Definitely.
For sure. Yeah. Do you guys have any pets?
No. So it's teaching that. I used to blame my mom all the time when I was in high school. Because I was like, you want to know why I'm not responsible sometimes? Because I never got a pet. We used to ask for a dog all the time. My sister and I, when we were growing up, like every year, get a dog, get a dog. And they said no. They had some traumatic experiences in the past, I guess. And it is what it is. I didn't get to experience that, sadly. But I did recently when I was living in a previous apartment with my roommate. We got a puppy and got to raise him for a couple months. And that was really nice. So I got to some of that. But no, I do plan to get pets when I move in to my next place with my girlfriend. And hopefully they get some dogs or some cats. That would be nice. Yeah. I'll get to get that back.
puppies, like some people try to equate puppies to babies. I don't think they're as difficult to care for, but I was caring for that puppy. It's not easy.
No. Okay. You know what's funny? I was thinking about that. People like babies are harder. I'm like, yeah, but babies don't move. Like they don't run. They don't have the flurries. They don't just bite everything in sight and want to just eat your flesh.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot. Like there was times where it was you couldn't do anything. You had to just constantly watch it or hold it. I mean, I remember one time I had to do some music, or I had to interview, or I had to teach like a mentor session, and my girlfriend was coming over, and I was like, "Do you mind watching the dog?" And she was great that she would watch the dog for me while I had to do my thing, and I just heard the entire time while I was doing this, "No Aries, no Aries, come on Aries," the entire time. And I was just like, but it's cute though. It's that thing where it's like, it's annoying, and you have to watch it constantly, but it's so fucking cute.
Yeah.
It's like, you're worth it, you little shitball.
Yeah.
Precious guy. So
Absolutely.
I feel like the pros outweigh the negatives, but it is draining.
Definitely. We had my family has a German Shepherd. She's about 9 or 10 now. She's an old lady. So when we first got her, she was like notoriously just terrible. Like she would just run out in the mud and just like roll around and like her own like poop even, and then just like go inside and like jump on sheets. Mind you, though, sweetest dog on the planet at this point.
Yeah.
Once she like got to like 3-4, complete sweetheart, but definitely worth it. Delayed gratification in the moment. Agonizing, and like she would just like eat her own poop. It was terrible. And, like
no.
You know, ADD, like it's kind of stupid. Great dog overall, though. You mentioned you do mentorship sessions. That how long have you been doing that? How'd you get into that? I mean, is that a way to kind of polish your own skills as an artist?
Yes, I love teaching just to start things off, and I didn't know I loved that until I was starting to do it, because I realized like through teaching I end up learning stuff. It's like there's sometimes like when you're explaining something, your thoughts bounce to another idea of something. You might be teaching a principle, and then like right after that, you're thinking, oh, well, how can I apply this principle to this other abstract or experimental idea? And I'll end up learning something. But yeah, it's funny how I started. It was just one friend, my friend Adam, who's a really close friend now. He was a mutual friend that I met at a party, and he heard my music, or whatever, and he used to manage and work with company and something like that. And so I was kind of like, oh, this guy knows kind of like the EDM scenes and stuff like that. But I didn't really get to know him that well. He was just kind of like that dude at the party that was on the couch, and we were kind of talking here and there. And then eventually he kind of Instagrammed me, and then, you know, sooner or later he asked me about like, just, would you mind teaching me some things? And I ended up charging like a very small fee or whatever. It was my first time. I was like, I'll just teach you what I know. Like, I don't want to charge you that much or whatever it was. And then we ended up building like cool songs together, and he was getting a lot better. And then eventually like he got a lot better, and it was really cool. And I felt really good to me to like, wow, I was able to help this guy like get to this level by just teaching him simple things, how to apply it. And then we started this thing called Octave Up, which was like this little company that we had at the time. It wasn't like an LLC. It was just a little thing that we were doing. And we would go in Facebook chat rooms and Reddit chat rooms, and we got a lot of clients doing it. And we provided like Dropbox assets, like videos, and he would kind of do the marketing and bring the people and build a relationship. And then they would come to me, and I would kind of help them and teach them. And we built kind of clients over that and like real friendships. I have a friend now, Brian, who's put out like 3 tracks on Spotify now, and it's only been like 5 or 6 months that started with him. He was like just starting on Ableton. You know, he's already connecting with artists, doing official remixes and things like that. And it made me feel really good to do that. And I found I made like good friends out of it. Like one of the guys I met also on Fiverr, because some of my stuff is on Fiverr, you know, he wanted to learn some stuff, and I taught him some dubstep elements. And then I found out he liked Halo, and the other day I was like, hey, I'm getting Halo Infinite. Like, are you going to get it? He's like, of course. I was like, all right, let's play. So it's just really cool that like, you know, I was able to actually get these cool friends out of it. Like some of them, are from other countries, and I never really got to speak face to face. But the ones I got to do like Zoom sessions, and I got to like get to know them, kind of like this, where I kind of had like a little hangout, talk, whatever, and then we kind of just like make some music together. I really found I liked it to the point where I would love to do something like that, you know, alongside my own project too. You know, whether that be in the studio or building some sort of business out of it. But yeah, I just like teaching. I like connecting with people and just sharing the knowledge and seeing them like improve on that. It makes me feel good, and I know they feel happy when they, you know, create like a good product that they they made themselves, you know?
Yeah. What happened with Octave? Is that still something you do, or?
Yeah, so it's something that is still there. It's just not as active because my friend who did that, he got hired by a company. It's a really good job, but it just takes so much of his time, and I can't run all of it. And he was the one that did the, like the reaching out and the marketing and stuff. He would get like a percentage of getting people in, and then I would be, the one kind of building the relationship and then teaching and doing all that aspects. So. I don't have that much time to do all of that, but he still have a good kind of client base. But I would love to kind of keep expanding on that in the future. But it's just a matter of how long will he be there, or will I find another partner in doing that, or time to do that myself?
That's so cool, man. And it sounds like you really enjoy like helping other people find their name and start producing and things. But can we take a step back and talk about how you got started, like where your name came from? How you even started producing in the first place?
Yeah, so I think it goes all the way back to high school. I was 16, maybe 17. And I remember I was doing community service at my middle school. I was in high school, but it was a community service at my previous middle school, which was a Catholic middle school, with my friend Eric. And that day he told me the night before he just smoked weed for the first time. And I was like, oh, no way. And he was like, it was unreal. We listened to Slightly Stupid, Revolution, The Expendables, just listening off like 5 bands that we were in love with. And he was like, it was the best thing ever. And I was like,
wonderful.
Oh, shit, man, And eventually he got me into it. So I went to my friend's house, Kyle, who I hung out with recently the other day. Still hang out with these guys. And we just don't smoke that much weed anymore, or if that any. But and his brother was there, whatever, and I was like, I guess I'm gonna try this because I did hookah before. My friend was Persian, so I was kind of like, I felt like it was the next step or whatever it was. All right, at least in my experience, being rebellious and experimental. And so I remember we smoked a little bit. I didn't feel anything, and then I took another hit, and then I started to feel stuff. I started munching on everything. And then we went upstairs, and his older brother put on, like, Dilated People's instrumentals, like Redman instrumentals, like a bunch of 50 Cent, 21 Question instrumental, like all these rap beats. And they just started freestyling. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, what is this? Like, this is so cool. And then my friend Kyle, who was the one that introduced me, his younger brother, who was my friend, because they were like 19 and we were like 16, 17. And he takes out like his little composition notebook. It looks like he's got some raps in it, and he's just going off. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, this is awesome. And I tried going and I was awful, but I was just having so much fun with it. And that was the start of everything in the world of music. And it became where we would smoke, go in a car, instrumentals, freestyle for 4 hours. All that. It was all hip hop in the beginning. It was just having fun freestyling, making songs. And then eventually it was like, yo, Kyle, you're like really good. And your written's just like, he's genius. And we were like, you're so good. Like, this is so poetic. Like, we got to record you. So I got like a little I got like a little $50 audio interface, like a cheap $30 mic. I got like Pro Tools, which I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. And I set up my closet. We just started recording stuff, and I got into like engineering. It was all hip hop. We were trying to like make Logic, Mac Miller, Wu-Tang mix kind of stuff. Just being these white kids, but we were really into that. That's all we did, And eventually that was from like 16 to literally like 20. I was doing that. I went to college, and I was like the freestyle like guy of like the whatever. I mean, we would do it in parties. We had like little rap offs, whatever. And I still do it to this day. I love rapping, and I have a giant love for hip hop. But my friend was like, let's go to a show. You've never been to a rave show before, like at a festival. And I went to Snow Globe, and it was in Tahoe. And it's a New Year's festival. So it's like super cold, but it's super cool. It's, snows everywhere. You're cold, but you're warm because there's people all around. It's a really cool experience. But it's not built for the weak. Like, if you don't dress properly, you will freeze. So, yeah, it's got some pros and cons, but it was still a good time and a good experience. And I saw What So Not, and I remember being at the front, and I just remember just losing it. I was like, I love this music. Like, just the energy in the crowd. Like, I never had that feeling of just the intensity in the build and the drops. And I heard that kind of music before. Like, my friend, I was obsessed with Gold Dust, Flex Pavilion. Like, I had subwoofers. in my speakers when I was 17 and got into music and just bump that shit and bump like Duck Sauce, like Barbra Streisand. Whoa! Those are like the only EDM songs I listened to, like just those two, right, in my life. Because he showed me like Excision at that time, but I was like, it sounds like Transformers, because it wasn't what it eventually was going to be, or what I was into. But then I saw all this future-based Flume, What So Not, the Dylan Francis Nightmare stuff, and I was like, this is amazing. So I remember going home after that, and I had all my stuff for vocal production. It's like, all right, I gotta learn how to make beats. That was something I never did. It was all vocal production. It was like, let me just try to sound cool over a YouTube beat, or my friend will make a beat and whatever. And I just, from that day, it was like, I remember reading something in Outliers, and it was like 10,000 hours to become a master. And I remember doing the math, and I was like, all right, 5 hours every day, divided by this, times this. I was like, I'll be a master by 28. And I was like 23 at the time. I'm 28 in a month. So
right there, man.
But there was definitely days where I didn't go 5 hours every day, right? But there was at least, I swear to God, probably 6 months where I did do 5 hours every day. Wow. Like, no lie. And it was really cool. There was definitely a plateau, but there was definitely like, I just got so hungry. I remember seeing and feeling my own progression and what I was learning and making. And I was just like, I want to keep going. Like, how much better can I get? Like, how much better can I learn? Yeah. But yeah, I just really fell in love with it. And then I started going to a bunch of those shows. I fell in love with the culture, and things like that. There was just a whole different vibe at the shows. I've been to hip hop concerts, and I've been to those concerts, and there's nothing wrong. I was just more attracted to that energy that the electronic music kind of festivals were doing. So I was just geared towards that, and I have a lot of energy. I'm sporadic, and the music spoke to me in that way, in a sense. Freestyling does too, because it's like off the top. I don't even know how to go fast or whatever. But yeah, that's how I got into it. It was just from that day, and then it just progressed from one genre to the next, and then into producing. And now it's like a blend between I have fun producing here and there and doing vocals or recording people's vocals.
It's really interesting that, like, seeing the EDM side of things, like the future bass, which I don't know, would you think of on a production side of things? Obviously, any genre, if you're doing it well enough, is difficult to do. But I would think that doing something like future bass would seem a little bit more intimidating than making like a regular hip hop beat. But you saw What's Tonight, you're like, fucking, I need to do this.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it was because it sounded so different and more interesting and more complex and harder than a hip hop beat. Yeah. Right? That was what drew me into it. And I realized how challenging it was because I was so bad. I was so bad at the beginning. I was like, and I wanted, when you start out and you make something and you're slightly happy, you always want to release everything. So you just start posting shit and you're like, I'm just going to be one of those guys that just posts the shit like every time. I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to post it. You know, but yeah, I think that's why I was like, because it was challenging and it was interesting, but yeah, I don't know. I think you just naturally gravitate towards what you want to do, and that was what it was at that time. It was fresh, and it was the same feeling I had when I was in that room, and I was like, "What is freestyling?" And I fell in love with that for 4 or 5 years. I found something new, and that moment was the same moment when I was at What's So Not. It was like this amazing feeling. Let me follow this now and pivot. You know?
It's incredible. I mean, we don't know the future, but do you ever feel like musically, if you ever have that moment again, do you think you'd pivot and go in a different direction?
I think everyone has to be ready for a pivot, no matter what it is, because we're always changing and adapting. But, I feel like there's a difference between adapting too much or trying to pivot too much because, you can't settle and stick with one thing. But I'm always ready for a pivot because if that pivot is that same feeling, then I know I'll feel super strong about it. I won't necessarily pivot into something that is so unknown. Like, I'm not going to just pivot and be like, I'm going to be a sculptor. Already, I don't know that I'm not drawn into it. If I sculpt it, I'm like, I'm in love with that. I don't know. Highly unlikely, but I feel like if it's a pivot probably in a musical direction, but I'll already be skilled because of the skills that I've learned over time. That it won't feel like so daunting. But if I do have that excitement, then I'll happily go towards that. And I feel like we all, as some producers, especially in the electronic music industry, it's more like accepted to be like, oh damn, he just put out a house track even though he's a dubstep artist, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like There's a little bit more of that freedom, even though it is still kind of like, dude, you're a rhythm artist. What are you doing making future bass or house or whatever that is? In some genres, it's kind of like, do this because people like you for what you are, and you want to create, kind of that product, a good product. But at the same time, you also want to make something that you like and it's good for yourself, and you can express yourself. And that's super important. So there's that balance. But I've had many pivots in my own experience like that, where it's like a little genre here, a little mid-tempo, some really into that, a little bit of this. I just think you have to just kind of follow what that is. I feel like whenever you try to recreate something that popped off, it's never going to be.
Doesn't really work.
Yeah. It might sound good for the other someone, but I don't know. It doesn't feel natural. So I see myself trying to do that sometimes, and it's like, just make what you want to make in the day. Have fun with it. Don't try to remake the successful track from your past.
Do you think it kind of undercuts the true expression of you as an artist?
Exactly. Because I think, like, for example, the most recent one that I did, Clack, was like UK Grime. And I remember just watching the movie, and there was like this robbing a bank scene, and it just had this high energy, and there was some drill rapping or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, this is super cool. Like, I love this vibe. I've always kind of enjoyed this, and I just sat down and made it in one night because I was just so into it. And I stayed up until 6 a.m. and I had work in 3 hours. And I was like, "The coffee, let's go to work." I just made a banger. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm very probably not functioning, but this is great. I listened to it like 1,000 times. It's fantastic. And it was because that day I was just like, oh, I'm so about this, just like that time when I was 16 seeing freestyle. And I think, if I find whatever, if I'm having a day out like that on Bass House, okay, maybe I'll put up Bass House. I probably won't, but I don't think you can chase. I won't go back to Clack or be like, oh, I got to make another robbing a bank.
You are the Clack guy. You don't want to be that, where you get attached to just that one sound.
Yeah.
You're fluid based off of what you're saying. It's like everything that you are saying is staying fluid and kind of continually expressing yourself. It's not just
exactly.
This is you.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that do you attribute? Like, sorry, I'm going to take a step back. You're talking about how it seems a little bit more acceptable for artists to be that way. How much of that do you think is like the actual climate of electronic music, and how much of that do you think is like the artist intentionally trying to stay fluid?
Oh, are you basically asking, like, do you think it's just the nature of the industry, like the industry environment of EDM, or is it more like the artist is purposely trying to switch things up?
Yeah, do you think it's getting, like, in a whole, like, our audiences becoming more, like, accepting of artists being fluid?
Yeah. I think the crowd, like the people that pay the most attention, I think they understand and support like that. Do whatever you want to do kind of thing. I think there's more of those people than there are people that are like, no, stay in your lane. But there's also something called the silent majority. So, who knows? A lot of, so.
Yeah, can I ask if we can kind of bounce into it? I don't mean to derail you.
Yeah, no, totally.
Where do you think that pressure comes from if it does happen in the music industry to say that you have to stay in the lane typically? And then what do you advise, like, in your own experience or to artists in general, to not fall into that trap?
I think it comes from one of those artists, having a successful track, let's just say like in a rhythm or some sort of genre, right? Really successful, gets put on a label, and you see the reaction from the crowd, and it's just hype and just mosh pit, and it's great. And whether or not you want to keep giving that because that's why you're getting booked, or that's what other artists are downloading for their EDC set, instead of your other track that you made that was really emotional, that you actually like love so much and you feel probably the most for. I'm just putting this random scenario, right? Yeah. And I just think there's this desire to want to like constantly create that re-experience of like, oh damn, that was a successful track, like another one, like another like hype thing, let me stick in my lane because this is what's working. Because it's like Cheez-Its making Cheez-Its. Like they're not gonna just make cookies, right? At the same time, like people like them for that. So
Yeah.
We know that, but music in the human is so fluid. And I think in order to be an artist and to like protect yourself from either being boxed in and staying that way, you have to set yourself up by doing things like either from the beginning or at a certain point, just putting out different stuff. Not like like I was saying, like if you just put out 50 tracks, like your first 50 tracks in the span of 4 years are all dubstep. If you just start doing other stuff, people might get more angry. Where if you were a project that started out and your first 5 songs were kind of different, people are prepared to be like, oh, this artist like doesn't really have something. He just kind of like makes music that he likes to make, and I don't know what his next song is going to be like, but I'm ready to listen to it and see what it is. I feel like you have to be kind of more prepared. I think it starts from the beginning. And I think if other artists have a long record of one genre and have been boxing, I do think it's harder for them to do that. But, you know, they do have a big loyal fan base, and especially being in the community that is more accepting of it, it's probably a little bit easier. But I still think there's that silent majority, if they've been doing it for so long and start making other stuff, you know, it might not be as accepting. So it's hard because it's so easy. We're not just like, not all vocalists, right? You can go into the program and you could just make something different. Whereas like, you know, if you should throw a rapper out there like Drake, like it's still his voice. That stays the same no matter what kind of beat is thrown on, EDM beat, whatever. It's still Drake. So it's hard to feel like off. Like, oh, he's doing something different, but it's not. It's the same voice. Whereas some EDM producers, they don't have their actual voice that stays consistent in there. You know, so if the production changes a lot, it's almost like you lose that for what other people might have liked you for. But yeah, I don't know. It's complex, but I just feel like you gotta just kind of do what you want to do, and you're gonna feel so much uncomfortability if you're trying to force something that people want. And people know that, you know, it's like intuition.
Yep.
Well, it's tricky too. You bring up the idea of like with rappers, they have their voice, their sound, obviously, that stamps whatever they work on. And with, you know, EDM artists, the idea is you develop like a sound so that like whatever song you have, you can kind of appreciate like, oh yeah, that's a so and so song or whatever. My question for you, because it seems like you've been pretty intentional in trying to stay in that lane that you were talking about, where you kind of don't box yourself in and go from genre to genre. It seems like you're doing really well with that, but does that make it more difficult to develop a sound if you're going from genre to genre, do you think?
Definitely. Yeah. I think it does. I think it's because if the sound isn't the sound, so if we compare guy A, which is he has that snare and that screech style wonk, whatever that is, right? I'm just putting something to a certain sound, right? Where you can blind test it and you'd be like, oh, that's that guy, right? And that's that sound, that's his voice. If let's say, and then there's B, like me in a sense, I could have that, or my voice could technically be that there isn't like a voice in a sense, but the thing that brings the brand there is the fact that you kind of almost don't know what's going to come, but you know that it's going to be somewhat heavy, but it's kind of like that. The lure is that it's unexpected, but you're right though. It is that challenge. I've had that challenge before. And I think it's just a matter of creating like a really high energy song. That's always my thing is I just want to have something that has a lot of energy or a lot of depth in a combination of both, you know, something that just makes you feel something. And I don't know, I've never been too attached about making my own sound because I've learned that if you force that too much, I don't even know if that's
kind of sounds like that's like trying to make your personality. You know, if you're trying to make a sound, you're just like, I'm going to be this person. It's like you don't do that. Though. It's just kind of you feel like, right?
And I think the reason why I just will make the stuff I'll make because I remember Company had a podcast and I was listening to one time, and he was just talking about production tips and like, you know, if you make a sound in a song and you really like it, save that little whatever synth and audio effects that you made or the sample that was resampled and put it and save it into a WHZLY folder and stuff like that. And over time, you'll build this thing. And if you take your stuff that you've used in other tracks and bring it back in and maybe change the character of it, over time, it might drive your sound because like you'll be taking the soul of other tracks. Maybe you're warping it, but they still have that somewhat character in it. And that's how you can slowly develop a sound. Because he was like, you can't just sit down and be like, this screech noise is my sound.
My sound.
You don't just like pick your personality. I think that was really great, like what you said. You can't pick your personality. I think you just kind of become it. And I think that's why I just make things I make, maybe. I don't know. Subconsciously, I'm just like, I'm just being me, just doing something random and fun because I'm really off the wall, and just like, maybe it'll sooner or later, like maybe something will stick and it'll be the same kind of random off the wall, but I just like to sit down and make something that just makes me feel something. And, maybe one day it'll turn to something defined, but I'm not focused on trying to make something like defined,
Yeah, it's the process of creating it, sounds like.
Exactly. And maybe, exactly. And maybe that process will become a pattern or more uniform as time goes on. And then I won't even know I'll have a sound. And someone will be like, oh, dude, I love his sound. I'm like, can you tell me what my sound is? Because I have no idea. But I've heard that happen to people where like they don't know their sound, but people end up making their sound like when you talk about it. And it's like, that's pretty interesting. So, yeah.
That's got to be an interesting moment when someone tells you what you're...
Yeah, but back to the personality analogy, that's kind of like someone says something about you, like, I noticed this, and you're like, yeah. And it's like, no, cool.
I think it's easier if you have like an EP. I think that is where I would focus something like, what's this EP going to feel like? This album.
Yeah.
Right? And then you can express that sound and that. But, as an overall genre, don't force it.
I think it's interesting the point you made from that podcast we were listening to where you'll take sounds you resonate with, though. And you kind of create a collage of them, and that's on your drawing board. You're like, ooh, these ones. And then you kind of take them and piece it together, and that becomes part of your library, because everybody needs inspiration. You kind of pull different books out, and you're like, oh, screechy, and this one, and then you kind of like put it all together. It's so pretty, dude.
Exactly. You have like a screechy that was like in one song, but then you grabbed it in your toolbox, and now it's like, but it still has that original soul. Maybe it was tuned down, pitch shifted, a little of this, but it still had the soul of the old song. And over time, it gets recycled and transformed. But it might cultivate that. So I'm still doing that. Like I'm building that library. We'll see if time comes when someone like comes up to me and is like, I know that sound. But
that's magical though. That's the magic of music though. So you just can take all those different parts and transform them and then repurpose them, and then you just create this whole expression.
That's all I do.
Exactly.
I thought it's funny when you were describing that too. You like I think you used the word sculpting and like made like a sculpting do you ever draw inspiration from different type of artists? Maybe not specifically a sculptor, but like it's funny because there's a lot of simulations between music and other art forms. Do you have anybody?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know if I read it or I was listening to it, but there was something that I heard or read that was like a good way to like feed the artistic soul is to not just feed one side of it. I mean, like if you do produce music, like don't just produce music. Like produce music, take a break, paint, or take a break, sculpt, or take a break, cook. Like practice something else in another art form. Something in that will kind of reinvigorate you to bring it back to maybe the main thing or vice versa. And I love to cook. I'm obsessed to cook. And I consider that like creative sometimes because I'm just throwing shit together. Like the other day I made refried beans. You're like, oh, kind of boring. But there was like 20 ingredients in it. And I fed it to my dad, and he was like, "This is amazing." My mom was like, "This is the best recipe beans ever." Because there was like 20 different spices, all like very tiny amount. I was just like, "I don't give a fuck." Throwing it in, like, let's go. Like it's like samples, like I'd like to do like 3D art, like all the art that you've seen on my either SoundCloud or Spotify. So I've done like that stuff. So I like to do like that kind of stuff too, like graphic design. I love grabbing an image, warping the fuck out of it. Just doing a bunch of stuff, like abstract stuff, because I think I don't know what it does to the mind, but it does something that when you come back to another art form, you kind of feel recharged. You have a different perspective on whatever that is, and then that feeds that too. So I think it's important to, like, if you're creative and you're focusing on something creative, whether it's painting, music, to explore and maybe find other things that are also kind of creative, and you don't have to spend a lot of time on those things, but just dabble in them a little bit and then go back to your main thing. I think it helps.
So I wondered, do you try and incorporate those type of things like continuously in your life, or is it like when you're hitting the rut, you're like, oh shit, I need to take a break and then go do something like cook or whatever it is that you do?
Yeah, I think, I just cook generally all the time. Yeah. So I think that's kind of just something that I'm always bouncing back from. But when I have like roadblocks or things like that, I think I just stop, or I just try to stop, or I just try to listen to music, or just take a break, take a weekend off. But I think art helps the most, like whether it's on my phone using an app, like grabbing some images and doing some cool stuff to it, or it's on my computer, or just like drawing little characters in a book. That helps me. And sometimes I only need to do it for like an hour, 2 hours, or just a day, and then come back. I'll feel fresh.
Mm-hmm. That's cool, man. That's very cool. Chef Anthony, what's your go-to dish if you were to like you're really trying to impress somebody? What would you
It's probably either the butter garlic, and it's a butter garlic steak served with brown sugar, maple bacon, Brussels sprouts. So that's one. It's really good. You'd be like, what? But like the syrupy brown sugar, Brussels sprouts, and bacon, and applewood bacon with like the garlicky steak is like a really nice sweet savory combo. It's fire. Another one would be like a chicken carbonara, which is just like kind of like a chicken, red, sun-dried tomato, kind of like white Alfredo sauce with some like red onions, and then at the last minute you put a little cheese on, you throw it in the broiler, just get a little crusty on top, so it's kind of like deliciousness. Yeah, some fire, and then I like this cold salad. It's like a garbanzo bean salad, but it's got like a bunch of stuff and a bunch of veggies, and I just toss it. It's really fast to make. That one's a good one. Yeah. Those are at least my top three. There's a lot. I'm telling you, a lot of it is experimentation. Like, I haven't made it before. It's just throw it in and start going.
Dude, I feel like Alfredo sauce is like the epitome of decadence for me. It's like,
it's the highlight.
It's the richness.
Yes. Let's give it to me. If we could, I mean, I love talking about pasta, but we connected to you through Steph, and this whole Subtle But True family and that collection of artists that you're now a part of a team with. Can you tell us a bit about how you connected with Steph originally, what that story was, how you got a part of Subtle But True?
Yeah, so I was with my older manager, Shay, a great friend of mine, and I was working on these 3 songs, and I wrapped them up, and he started pitching them to different places, and we saw this place called Obscure, and they wanted to take these 3 songs. One of them was like a melodic dubstep song called Fighting Future. One of them was like a DNB Jamaican vibe, one that was really cool. That I love. I only say Jamaican because like the sample was like a Jamaican sample, and then the other one was like some 90 BPM like ketamine in the forest, weird wonky thing, right? And I was like, they want all 3 of these as an EP. And I was like, these are the most like I know I produce different stuff, Shay, but like we had this one grouped in this one and this one grouped in this one. I was like, I want these 3 together, and he's like, yeah. I was like, gee, these are like all. Like, this sounds like 3 different people. And he's like, I know, and that's why they love it. He's like, I think they want to do something where it's like just totally 3 different songs randomly. And I was like, what? He's like, call it the multi-genre opera. It rhymes off the tongue. And I was like, I love that, bro. That's actually fantastic. And it expressed like what I guess those was and what like the nature of my thing is. I like this. Like, I'm gonna have fun with this thing and stuff. And at that time, I was just experimenting. I didn't see myself as like, I'm some pro. I didn't even see myself as that now. I just see myself as loving music and making it and then releasing it sometimes, But at that time, I was like, okay, like, let's do it. Let's put all these 3 songs out and make some art. And Steph was the one that helped mediate that with Obscure. So he was the one, I guess, that she was working with, and he was networking with her. And she was the one that I think got me that deal with that EP, which is really huge, which is really cool. And eventually we, a couple of months went by. I had another song called Knockout out, and she was connected to that whole like Drama Club, BT fam, Subcarbon fam, because Matt Doe had released a song with Subcarbon as well. One of the SBT fam, shout out Matt Doe, and we sent them Knockout and stuff. We sent it to her, and then she was able to mediate that. I'm pretty sure, and we got that signed with Subcarbon. And I remember being 23, and I was just getting into that. It was like just when Subtronics was getting big. He wasn't even big yet. Like, he wasn't at any festivals. Whipped Cream was playing his song in the Heineken stage at Coachella, which was like a smaller stage. So she wasn't even that big yet. It was like 2016. And I just remember, like, dude, this guy's electronics is insane. He's super cool. He's got all these wonky songs. I remember looking at Subcarbon at that time. He was like, I want to get on the stage. This is so cool. And I remember thinking at the time, like, this is going to be so hard to achieve. Who knows? But I wanted to make it a goal. I remember when they wanted to sign Knock It, it was like, I was so happy because I felt like my old self was like, did it! You got it! And I don't think that would have happened without, if Steph was there or Steph mediated that with Obscure and stuff like that. And then eventually Shay had to, he was promoted to like another agency and he couldn't take all his artists and things like that. So he had to leave a lot of his artists, which was fine. And, Steph was that one that she'd listen to my music. She loved my music. She'd have like a little one-on-one call, if you recall. First and a one-on-one call, and we just hit it off. And she's the best. And
so rad.
She's been the best ever since, and she's awesome.
From the artist or you as a person, your standpoint, like what do you look for in somebody who's you're going to be working with closely as a manager?
From having my experience of a few, I only had two, but I think I just look for a balance between like somewhat friendship and professionalism, but at the same time, more detailed. Like I want someone who's excited about it and into it. Like me and Steph, we have a really fun time talking about art and ideas and concepts about like, what's this EP? If we had an EP, like let's just brainstorm some cool ideas. What would it be like? We're making like comic book story ideas of stuff together, We're having fun during meetings. We got she's super professional too. She's super organized. There's always tons of Discord with 8 different chats about different things and things like that. And she's really into the project and just as much as I am sometimes. And she gets inspired by me and I get inspired by her professionalism and things like that. And I think that's really important is when I get to be excited about maybe this cool concept idea and I don't have to be alone in that. I don't have to be like the only one to enjoy this idea and try to prove it to someone. Yeah. Whereas like with her, it's like I get to talk about it and we get to expand and she even goes more into it. And it's like, let's get me more excited. Yeah, what if it was this now and stuff like that. So I think it's really important. Like someone who feels like she's also Weasley in a sense, or just gets to be as excited about it as me. Instead of just like got tracks. It's not so business. Like pump out the product, let me ship it out. I really get to like be creative with her. I think that's really important, at least to me.
Yeah. It shows when we talk to her too. She's just super excited about, everything that we're doing. It's cool, man. I had a follow-up question that just slipped my mind.
It's interesting your point though, that not having it be so restricting and like, let's just get the end product out type of personality in terms of in the relationship when you're creating music. That came out kind of jumbled, but it's better to not have it where it's very like strict deadline, give me the product, because then it's almost like it's sucking the energy out of the artist. And then you're viewing, in my opinion, it's like viewing the artist as a commodity and only a commodity as opposed to a human being and an artist and a creator and all these other things, which is what I think where the essence and beauty of being an artist is like that, fluctuating, cool, like living, let's radiate good vibes around type of human. And like, I think you should cultivate that in a relationship as opposed to let's chain you down and just suck out like 6 EPs and then like give you some money and then you're good to go, which was, what the capitalist model often gets like criticized for. We don't have to go into that, but
no, that was eloquently said though.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, perfectly. I mean, and I feel like a lot of people feel like that. And I don't know if that's just the culture because of how things, they want that new banger. Give me a new banger. I want a new banger. I'm tired of this banger, But yeah, I hope no one has to go through that too much. And if someone does and they have a manager that has that, I hope it doesn't affect them that much. They just kind of brush it off because that's not a good feeling.
It's like toxic versus healthy relationships, almost.
Yeah. Yeah. You do have to balance that, when you get to that certain level of it's a business, but at the same time, you don't have to be a machine.
Yeah.
You can run a business and still be that blooming flower, like you said, like that expressiveness,
Yeah. Which is ultimately the reason people are coming, you know, is they want to see that. That's why people like shows, festivals.
Exactly.
I don't know. A little bit of sympathy for managers though, because it is a difficult line to ride. You know, it is a business.
Oh no, it is.
You know, it is a business, but you also, you just can't go too much on either side, and that's why I was really impressed with Steph. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but she seemed to be a good example of like what on the outside looking in seems like what a good manager should balance at. You know.
Yeah, I think a good manager will get the artist to want to work hard for her as well as they are working hard for them. You know, like they're doing so much, they're being such a good person for them. Like you want to make sure that you're doing your extra part when they ask you for something, you give them 1 + 2. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you put a little bit more. They're there for you. Like think about it, man. Like they're the ones that are invested in you and pitching for you because they believe in you, and that just means a lot in itself. And they're talking to all these people for you and trying to do these things, and they get like a cut for it, but they should. They're almost your project too, and they're doing a lot for you, and you have that good relationship too, and they're doing all that work. Like you should be working hard for them just as hard as you are for your own project too. You know, so both can thrive together. It's a symbiotic relationship for sure.
Yeah.
And I love where it's subtle but true how she was saying, and it sounds like you mentioned some things as well. It makes it seem like it's a team effort thing. You know, that's so cool. I feel like you don't get that with all management companies, right?
Yeah, I was on the freeway yesterday picking up my girlfriend after getting some Jamba Juice, and Matt Dope was playing at Red Rocks. And I think it was either Matt Dope's girlfriend or one of the team members was at Red Rocks, and they FaceTimed. And all the other guys in Canada, I'm the only guy that's in the States in LA. and they're all speaking in French, but we got like a 6-way FaceTime. I got the phone like on the miles per hour gauge, and we're all like, like, we're just going like ham, and they're like, keep your eye on the roads, Weasley. And I'm like, and we're having a good time. And then one of the artists too that I haven't talked to too much, everyone left. It was just me and him, and we started chatting, and we were going to FaceTime maybe tonight or tomorrow, just talk about music and stuff like that, because we haven't gotten know each other too well, except for some on the group times. But yeah, it is a family for sure, right? We all support each other, and it's just cool to have that support in that group. It feels like a music fan. Which I think is
that's good. Are management groups usually small, like 5-6 people? Is 5-6 people small? Is that big? I'm speaking out of ignorance here, but I mean, is it usually like bigger labels? How does that work?
Yeah, I would assume that when there's like a certain tiers. I think like the first tier is like 1 starting manager, 1 starting artist. And then it goes to like a middle class like manager who's maybe got like 2-3 artists. And that's like the little fam. And then there's like another one where he's got like maybe 5 or 6. And they're either a tight-knit fam or maybe some of them don't talk to each other as much. And then the next manager is the one that works at like Prodigy Artists or UTA. Right, and they maybe either manage that whole roster or a couple people. And I feel like if you're a part of those bigger agencies, I just don't know. I don't know if it feels like a family. Yeah. I mean, a lot of them are getting booked at the same places and stuff like that. I'm just not sure. I wouldn't know if it feels like family over there. But I know my previous manager, we had a team with Dom and Cinemata and Chris and Burnett, and we still felt like a family. It was really cool. Burnett was from Massachusetts. He flew out. We all hang out. We had a great time. Same thing with Gom and Cinemata from Milwaukee came out. We had a great time. He slept over, crashed here with his boyfriend, and we all had a great time. We went out for dinner. So it was very family based. So I hope other management teams have that, because I think it's nice to have that support and that connection.
To shift gears a little bit though, you mentioned earlier briefly, but it's a really fucking cool experience. I saw the video of when Subtronics reviewed your track.
Oh yeah.
What was that like, man?
Best thing ever. I watched it 8 times. that was the best thing of all time. I remember actually being on the toilet when that was happening, and I remember leaving, and I was like, "Fuck, I gotta get some toilet paper." Shit. And like, all right, we got Weezy. I was like, "Fuck the toilet paper!" I'm like standing up with my pants down, like in the back. Let's see it, and he just goes like, "Ooh," and I'm like, "Ah." Yes, and yeah, that was a great experience. That was the first time I ever felt like what validation, or like legitimate validation from someone that I idolized and looked up to.
Yeah.
And like someone who I was telling my friends, you gotta listen to this guy. He's gonna be the next Souza. He's awesome. He's great. And he's super wonky. And to hear that, I was just like, oh God, yes. Like there's a few things in life where like you hear and it makes you more motivated to keep going.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of those things. And fun fact, that song's actually coming out on a label in the new year pretty soon.
Oh, shit. It was a label. Was that vague on purpose, or can you give us details?
I don't know if I can.
Okay, no worries.
I'm not going to rush the bass, so I'll see about that.
Okay, that's very exciting, though, man. Yeah, that's got to be jet fuel. Hearing that from the man Jesse, like, oh Lord.
That was a great experience, and I was just like, okay, just keep doing what you're doing, just keep making music that you think is worth putting out, that you like so much. But, you know, I just sometimes just make songs I'm like, this deserves to be in a movie. This deserves to be in an action scene. If it hits that, like, yes, it deserves it. It could be in this. I don't know. I'm like, this is a good song.
I've heard you say that a couple times about your music, that it, like you created to be in like an action scene or something. I think it'd be cool if EDM artists started like scoring films.
We were just talking about that the other night. Yeah.
What if there's a film your music could score, like one of your favorite movies? What would you want to like create the sound?
I would love to redo the whole thing for Baby Driver. The bank robbing one. To be honest, you're gonna be like, "Oh, bro, come on, no." Either any of the Fast and the Furious, family, especially the best one ever, Tokyo Drift. The most garbage one of all time. I'm trying to think of some other ones too. Kingsman. I would love to start Kingsman.
That would be cool.
As you can tell, a lot of the films have high energy. Or like I would love to do like a Terminator 2 or something like that. Like if there was ever an actual good Terminator that was recreated.
Signals here.
But I'm very like I don't know what the word is, but I like to think visually. And I do this weird thing sometimes where I make the cover art first. I'll make the custom art, and then sometimes I'll either try to make a song to that art, or I'll just start making something, and then it'll just lead into a 6-hour bender, and I haven't had any food, and the song is done, and it's great. or it'll be based off like a purpose. Like, this is a bank robbing thing. Here's the image. This person leaving out of the place, and it's just funny you said that because I just downloaded a bunch of like symphony drums and like orchestral stuff because I wanted to. I saw like this cool lesson that my friend did at a music school where they have a scene of a film and it's like make a 30-second music clip like to this.
Wow!
And I was like, I might want to try that or just try to make something again cinematic just for fun. I think it's important to like just try something different or like just have fun with whatever you're interested in or what you want to do, instead of being like, all right, gotta make another rhythm banger. Let's kick, snare, clap, see if I can get a good phaser bass. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, if you want to do that, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if you're excited to sit down and do that, awesome. But like, if you also are excited for some reason about like scoring 1942 for like the first minute of the action beat scene or something, like, just do it. You're not going to release it, just do it.
Well, this is what like it could be a challenge and it could be fun. It could be stimulating. Have you ever had
stimulating? Like those big words.
I don't know if this is a common thing for producers, but I know like Mac Miller was known for having like silent movies on in the studio when he was like producing anything. You ever like thought about doing something like that?
Well, yeah, I have this big TV right here.
There it is.
Yeah, and I haven't actually since I'm temporarily here until I find a new place. But this TV, this room is where I produce a lot of my stuff early in the days, and this TV would always have like anime on or some like action stuff, and it was always just turned off, but it was just visually there, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of anime. I remember Castlevania was on a lot. And sometimes I'd be like, okay, I'm going to stop producing. Let's just actually watch the show because this looks intense. I think it's cool to have like art while you're doing stuff.
I cannot speak to anime, but
I love anime, man.
We have an anime man over here.
Yeah, you do? Awesome.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Moving artistry, man. The teams they put on those animes too, like the quality is fantastic. You watch Naruto?
What was that? Sorry?
Did you watch Naruto ever?
That's the one I've never actually seen.
Never seen?
I know.
They started Boruto, which is like the next section of it.
Okay.
Specifics here, but the artistry is like fantastic in the new series. They put a lot of animators. They do this really cool thing where they'll contract on whole teams and they'll find them on like wherever people post art, and then they'll recruit them on. And then they'll have like a team of people just doing fresh designs for new like fight scenes.
Oh, sure.
I thought that was a really dope concept though.
That's a super dope concept.
Yeah, and they'll like recruit people as opposed to just like having a tight company. They'll,
just having a team do it.
Yeah, they look for people and they find like up and coming talent, which is really dope.
That's really cool. And it's also cool. It's like refreshing to see each episode kind of in a way. It's like, this might have a different feel to it. You know? That might bring you back, for the next one to see what that's like. That's really cool. I've never heard of anything like that. You don't see a company operate like that.
Yeah, I think they keep like a general brand, or like an idea, because there's the story and the world.
Yeah.
But they want to I think it just like helps them recruit new talent really easily because they can just pull and they just have people, recruit it. It's pretty cool. What's on your watch list right now?
Oh, if I have to finish, there's this one. I can't pronounce it. It's like Hiramasu or Hiroko. It's about volleyball. I can't think of it.
Yeah, no, that's a classic one. Isn't it? Is that a shonen? I think it's a shonen, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, it's a shonen. Yeah, it's fantastic. You'd be like an anime about volleyball, but it's so good. Yeah, it's great. I wish there was more Death Note or less Death Note. I've probably watched it 1,000 times. But on the watch list, my friend said to watch JoJo or Bizarro JoJo.
Yes,
Adventure or whatever.
Yeah, I couldn't get through it, but it's really, really good. I've heard great things. It's so bizarre, though. I'm just like, what's going on? It's kind of scum, dude.
But yeah, those are on somewhat of the watch list, even though one of them bizarre. We'll see. But I want to finish up on the Hirokawa one or the volleyball one first. Definitely.
Yeah, and the shonens are good. They all have like a similar like story arc too, which is really cool. Like they have like similar, like the drama is very similar. It's because Naruto is a shonen, I think too. But it's like you can just see the parallels, which is really cool. It's just the same intensity, even if it's volleyball, and not necessarily like ninjas fighting and killing each other. It's like get this spike, and then they're all building it up. It's fantastic.
Do you have anyone on your watch list or anything like that?
I'll like probably. I might get into Boruto a bit. I got nothing right now. I've been watching.
What about your favorites? What about like a
favorite
top?
Dude, Motivate My Life based off of Naruto. It's a weed comment. If I'm ever, it's that good. Because like, if I ever have a moment where I'm like, I don't know if I can get through it, I'm like, Naruto became the Hokage. I'm get through this shit. Just like think through it. And, like the whole universe is really cool and how it interacts. Like the technology behind it, it's really sophisticated. I'm just kind of gonna merge.
Dragon Ball Z and anime.
Yes, I would actually.
Okay. Some don't. That I was obsessed with that. Like so, I was a Dragon Ball Z nerd forever. Like I was Super Saiyan every day after school. Like imagine.
Yeah, dude, that was like elementary school for me. Every time, just fucking getting out of school. Just like
that's one of the few ones where the English dub was actually better than the original.
Yeah.
But. Okay. So you're it is an anime. Okay, cool. So I know that train too, but a lot of people are like, no.
Yeah, people don't want to consider Avatar anime though.
Yeah. Well, do you think Avatar is an anime?
So, you know why? Because the one brain is like, yeah, the other brain's like, Doug, Nickelodeon. There's no way. But if I have to lean on it, I would say yeah. I'm going with yeah.
Cool. Validated by.
There you go.
That's as far as I've gone. Like I've gotten there, and I was like, "Come on, guys, I watched this one." They're like, "No, it's not. It's not. It's
just a cat."
It's like I would base it as like level 1. Like it's got the hint of it.
Yeah, it's got the inspiration,
and that's why I would say yes because it's got the hint. But other people might say no because it just has the hint. So I get that too.
Yeah, fair enough. I've been slowly introduced to Studio Ghibli by my girlfriend.
Studio Ghibli's they make good movies.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Problem is, it's so nice and like soothing that I just fall asleep every time I watch.
House movie Classical is kind of creepy. What's the other one? The one where it's like a little kid and then she goes into the fantasy world.
Spirit World?
Yeah, that one's kind of creepy in my opinion. Thanks really like, get into it. She's like 7, dude.
Yeah.
She loses her parents, goes into a mythical land, and some giant lady's trying to attack her.
Has this like
steals her name.
Yeah, male figure that's kind of like
identity.
Yeah, she really does. Like she signs off her name and then forgets it, and then she's like trapped in the fantasy world.
Yeah, she's like,
identity theft. That's pretty funny. It's true.
Can you talk? Sorry, I'm just trying to pivot here.
Yeah.
Can you talk about a little bit more about Clack? Because that song is so fucking good. How would you? I think I don't know if you do describe your own songs like when you do the description in your songs, but I really think you should because it's a really great way of describing them. Yeah. How would you describe that song?
That one is like it reminds me of like either Kingsman or like Crank. Like it kind of reminds me of Crank. Like it's Jason Statham and you're about to rob a bank and you're low, so you just tased your fucking nipples with a fucking car battery and you ran in and you just fucking stole that shit and you came out. You didn't hurt anyone. You maybe knocked some heads, but they'll be fine. And you just broke some shit. It sounds like you ran in someplace, you fucked it up, you got out, and you're just on this wild fucking escape car ride on the freeway, and maybe you're jumping over shit. Like to me, it sounds like some high energy, get in, get out, like just like that adrenaline. Like that's how I would explain it. And I think I might have said something similar to that in whatever the sound cloud description was of the song, but that was a song that was literally made in one night. It was just because I had this like super simple idea, and then it turned into like this really cool drill drum beat, which I've always kind of liked and never really got to like actually seriously think about producing. It was more stuff that I like rap to back in the day, or like drill beats to rap to with my friends.
Right.
And then I got to like have to make this like bass track, and then I found the missing pieces, and then the sun was coming up, and the track was done, and I sent it, and I was like, "This is fire." And some people I sent it to were like, "Oh yeah, this is really good." And I was like, "No, this is fantastic." And
play it again.
It didn't come out for a while. And then Seth became my manager, and he's like, "All right, let's do a self-release." And which one? And I was like, "This one." I like this guy a lot. I'm proud of that one. I do like that one. There's other songs that I'm making where we're actually reaching out now to other UK rappers, trying to discover like underrated talent, because something about it that sounds fresh. Then like I'm not saying anything bad on like American rappers in the EDM scene or something like that, but I just like hearing that style.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, okay, I would love to kind of see if anyone would fuck with that, because I have no problem making a hip hop track or something like that and being a producer on their song or something.
Yeah.
But I like to branch out. I have song credits on like some other songs too, so I don't try to pigeonhole myself into like I just make EDM. If I make something totally different, I won't probably put it on WHZLY, but it'll be on like the song credits or something like that.
So I hadn't thought about this till now, but I think you touched on something like, is there a reason you think that you do see and hear more? It just feels more natural for UK rap to be combined with EDM at this point. You don't hear as much like American rap on top. I mean, you do, but it's just, I don't know. Is that
it doesn't fit as well, right? It sounds a little cheesy. No, we can say it. Yeah, I would think, I might be outspoken or whatever it is, but I think sometimes when I hear some rapping on some EDM pre-dubstep drop, like it could work.
Yeah.
But some majority of the time, it's hard for it to not sound cheesy, and I don't know why that is. I'm not sure if it's because the beat behind it doesn't feel like it's fitting with the rapper. It feels like it's a dubstep beat and someone's just rapping over it and being hype.
Right.
Or if it's just the fact that maybe, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, what's that famous guy on Disciple who's always in that Virus Syndicate or whatever? He's on a lot of tracks, and I think he's from the UK.
Yeah.
It just sounds really good on a lot of that stuff, and it works. But at the same time, I think it works because in American culture, we're used to hearing so much rap and so much rap not in an accent. And I think on the EDM scene, I think a lot of people that are really into that scene, they're the kind of people that like, they don't, at least majority of them, I would say, don't want to hear the top 50 at the club. They want to hear that wonky ID that nobody knows.
Right.
Yeah.
They're that whole different species, right? It's like, I want to hear something I've never heard versus the girl. It's like, play Justin Bieber, please. You know, nothing wrong with Justin Bieber. It's fucking fantastic, right? But like, it's a different world. People want to play what they know versus like something totally different. And I think for some reason, I think hearing the UK-ness is fresh because we're from the States, right? Yeah. And I don't know. I just think it just sounds fresh, so maybe it's a little bit more acceptable, or it seems like it fits more. I don't know. Maybe
like already has that level of uniqueness just because it has
and I think it's more accepted because there's already that idea and philosophy of the majority of those people liking that freshness, unexpectedness, and when you get that, you get that response instead of like, oh, it's American accent rapper.
Yeah. I'm sure it happened before this, but the first time I heard that combination was on Flume's mix, and he started adding some.
Oh, the one that came out like 2 years ago.
The visualizer, yeah.
I know the artwork was like a multicolored car or something like that. Yeah.
Did you ever go through the whole visualizer?
I went through like 10 minutes of it. I was at work, so I couldn't see but I remember it was really well done.
It was cool. It makes you start. Like, I felt like I was tripping, and I was not. I was like, "Holy shit!" Like I started looking around the room. I'm like, "Am I in a different dimension?" But that was the first time. I'm sure there was people that did it before that. But that was the first time I heard that combination. Yeah. Oh shit! Okay.
Did you like it?
Yeah, at the time I did. It was exactly what you're saying. Because I put myself in the category of people that like unique, like shit I haven't heard before. And I was like, this fits so well. I've never heard it, and I love it.
Yeah.
Especially Flume's beats. I'm like,
it's very creative, quirky.
Yeah, very. He fits that make whatever sometimes. And people love him for that. And he's a pioneer for sure. But I do experience other fans and friends who are like, I'm really a big fan of the new stuff, and it's like you're totally entitled to feel that way. That's fine. And there's other people out there that are going to be like, I love this new stuff. It's just familiar. People that want familiar versus people that are just open to be like, give me the art. Fuck it.
He does. I think he does lean.
He leans more toward that.
Yeah, he really does.
Definitely, yeah.
He's like, I think just enough structure to like keep you like, oh, this is music, but then beyond that, it's like fucking whatever he wants.
It's kind of like artwork. Like I don't know, it's like it's not postcard, but it's like a type of artwork where it's like.
Like the splatter paint art.
Yeah. You just like make form with it. It's very loose, but then like you'll get these structures in there. There's something to that though. There's
I had an idea where we're gonna get canvases and we're gonna put like the W, like my name. Or no, it was my girlfriend's idea actually. Who thought of it? And it was like put a tape of like my name or whatever, and then we're just gonna get paint and just throw fucking shit all over, and then take the tape off. And so then we have like the name behind there, like whether it's a black canvas or a white canvas, so all the random paint wouldn't be there. I want to do that so bad.
That sounds.
I love that shit. Just like throw it, fuck it. Like that's what I do with my art on the phone. Like there's you ever had those warp features where you can like stuff or like move it over? I'll just grab like a download a photo of a fence, like a Google image of a fence.
Just warp it.
Grab that warping. I'll just go. And it becomes this random weird pattern thing that I'll bulge it, fuck it up, and just becomes this. It's just sporadic. It's just randomness. It's that one. I forgot. There's a formula. I forgot what it's called. It's some theorem or whatever. It explains the randomness in the entire universe, and that's why I just try to produce. I forgot what it's called. I'll think about it maybe later. But
sounds like a great conversation topic. Dive into that, dude.
Fantastic. Yeah. The Mendelbrot set. It's the Mendelbrot set. It explains the pattern of chaos in the universe, and the data that's shown from the pattern actually looks like the Buddha, and it's crazy.
Whoa,
people go on DMT trips, which I've never done or don't advise, but people have done it for whether they had to do some ayahuasca thing or they explored it to help any issues, or they just wanted to experiment. They report of sometimes seeing the Buddha or this shape, and the Mendelbrot set it basically just looks like this vector, like repeating of like these fractals in a sense, like when the formula is graph and what the pattern looks like. It looks like a Buddha, which is insane.
What's wild? The story you just gave, like 70% matches up to like my buddy's DMT experience.
No way.
Like he's going through like this big hallway, like lost his body, and it's just a huge hallway. Yeah. He goes to this fountain at the very end. And there's just like Buddha heads. They're all in water, come out of their mouths, and it's just like a layer of them. But he just like look at them, and that was his experience. But it's wild that like it matches up.
Interesting. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's like going to a different plane, dude. That's what it seems to be. You know, you just go to a different plane of consciousness. Literally.
Whatever. Yeah.
But first of all, that's really cool. But I love humans, and that we have to have an explanation for everything, and like data, and like we need a reason and explanation for randomness.
Yeah, right. It can't just be random.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'll send you guys a video on it if you're ever interested to look at it, because it is interesting to think about it.
Please send it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine
I love that
walk.
shit.
Yeah, me too. I think we do as well. Imagine if you just walked outside and they just like shot into the sky. Yeah, like, do you want randomness on that? No. I like to go outside knowing that my feet are going to be on the floor, at least with some certainty. I can't know for sure.
You don't know.
I mean, today might be the day. You know,
I just had weird flashbacks from my childhood. I had this weird
shot up in the sky.
No.
Okay.
I was terrified. Okay, so I don't know how old I was. It must have been like first or second grade, but I had a really weird science teacher that like I think probably smoked a lot of weed looking back at it. But they were trying to explain like atoms and how they've like built the foundation of everything, and they're like. They're trying to explain how like there's so much space between atoms, and they're like, there's really no explanation as to why when you take your feet off the bed every day and put them down on the ground that you don't just sink through the floor. And I was fucking terrified.
Yeah.
For a while, that I was just gonna sink through the floor.
Yeah, that is. I mean, the fact that there's atoms or like on like a quantum level that literally will disappear. Go to thousands of light years away and then just come right back. That is like, oh, okay, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me.
Wait, what?
What is this?
Yeah, quantum physics is pretty insane. And like the whole, it's cool. I think it's really cool. A weird nerdy note. I won't go too into that. Quantum physics can somewhat, like theories of it can somewhat explain the law of attraction into like.
Yeah.
Think it and you believe it, like the
frequencies and your
manifest into like,
relationship between frequencies and your environment. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I think that's really cool, and I just hope there's more research into that. And
it's hard to measure. That's why it's pretty hard to measure.
Extremely hard to measure. Yeah.
And it's also like there's a new agey taboo around it too, where like I think that kind of got criticized in science, out of the 60s because of a lot of LSD and dropping in and dropping out. They're like, we can't do this. We need to
know, yeah.
Like, just smoke weed. So we need to make wealth. And then everyone's like, nah, man.
Can you imagine if everyone did it like water? Like what studies would be approved or things like
that?
I'm not advising everyone to do that, but it's just funny to think of that outcome if things weren't deemed as they were deemed.
Yeah, I'll advise it. That would have been so fun to see, like the whole generation of people just tripping. What would have came out of that generation?
Yeah.
We're on a tipping point, though.
Well, it's like you got to integrate it, though, in a way that's constructive, I think. Because I've listened to like 3 podcasts on this, so I'm an expert. But like the fear is that you commoditize the psychedelics and you just sell it into the environment, and then people just start using it as like complete recreation without using it as a healing modality or without using it to integrate into their more authentic selves. But it becomes dangerous because then you just get the 60s again, right? And it's just like, big man is evil, and then they become the big man eventually. Yeah. So it's like we need a sophisticated mythological structure to bring this into the society.
That's fair.
At least that's an idea.
Yeah, that would make sense. You gotta have like that medium of like treating it almost like medicine versus just complete recklessness, like how we sell alcohol now.
Yeah, which is kind of what it was in a lot of cultures historically. I think there was a big container around it.
Yeah.
Not like restrictive.
They're slowly introducing ketamine into like pharmacies and therapies.
Oh, did you?
Like that.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you can start to see some of those things there as well as in Vegas. My sister said some therapies are slowly starting to introduce pure MDMA. It's like, found that really interesting. I was like, wow. Okay.
There's some incredible data. I mean, in like PTSD especially. Yeah. Like unmatched as far as treatment modalities go.
Yeah. Psilocybin too is done pretty well.
Yeah, I would say psilocybin and people that are on near-death experiences are terminal. Yeah. And like them doing some like psilocybin mushrooms experiences and being so more content with that than they were, which was really interesting. A lot of people.
Kind of eases that death anxiety. It eases the anxiety around death, but also I think about connecting to like past yourself or, connecting to something deeper. Yeah. Whatever that is, and however you define it. It's different for everybody, I think. But
it can be scary though. I make the assimilation of like with psilocybin. I mean, it's the only one I've experienced, but it's kind of like peeling the curtain back and you see a little bit behind the curtain. And that can be good. That can be therapeutic. And that's why I think I would probably go along with your viewpoint that it's probably better to have a structure of how to introduce it into society instead of just like saying, fuck it.
Well, it's good to have, I think, sometimes like rough guides too, because if it's just like you get thrown into Skyrim, you have no idea what Skyrim is. It's a little scary. Yeah. But if you're like, oh, there's a dragon over here. Sometimes that happens. Like it's magic. And it just kind of helps you like find your way through, But if you're just in there and it's like, oh my God, like I got shot in the leg with an arrow and I can't figure this out. Yeah. And it's too much. So it's good to have, the map or the guides or the wise people or, just people to kind of coach.
That's helpful to get through it instead of just getting caught up, overwhelmed, and like freaking out.
Yeah, which can actually, I think, cause PTSD because it's like you get so open, your personality trait openness opens up even more, and then you see things that you're not ready to see. And then your psyche's being introduced to part of the subconscious and unconscious that it's not prepared for. So your ego is too fragile to like integrate that, so it breaks. But that's not a bad thing. So the break is needed for the repair to kind of grow and can kind of like peeling off layers of the onion and growing as a tree. But this is my shit.
We're touching on ego death, which I love. Yes.
But yeah, it's good to, I think, just be wise about how you do that. Yeah. Because you don't want a bunch of, and it's also warned if you do it when you're really young, before you create a personality. There's also like some literature that says that that's dangerous. Because you don't create who you are yet, and then you start like breaking down your ego, and then it's just like it's hard at that point because you have to figure out how to integrate into society. It's important. I don't know though.
Dude, it sounds like you do. That podcast is brought to you by psilocybin.
Yeah, exactly.
We can have a whole separate.
It's a great time. It's a great time to shout out our sponsors.
Cash App when you need it fast.
Exactly.
What's your? I mean, this is kind of a general broad question. I'm just making it up, Anthony. But what's your view on the connection between substances and EDM music? Is it? I don't see it as a necessity anymore, but I'm curious. It's obviously a big part of the community.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful and abusive at the same time. Yeah. So it's the act of it is a fun, a great way of open-mindedness, self-expression in a sense, tapping into just something else, like letting free. And those are the good, the really good aspects of it. And a lot of those things, they bring you closer to people, right? But the bad side is, yes, they can be very abused. You don't know where essentially what's in what you're taking sometimes if you're not smart about whatever that might be, So it's hard to navigate because you can't advocate for it because at the same time it's unexpected, but you don't know if it was somehow controlled and there was a guide for the entire festival on a professional level. Maybe that would be something really interesting that wouldn't even be looked down upon or judged.
Yeah, wow, that's a great idea.
But what I've noticed from my experience is that at least for me, it was like I didn't need it as much later on. Going there because they kind of teach you about when you have that experience the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, you kind of know what it's about, and whatever it is that you're on, connecting with people and being there, being outside yourself, or feeling just kind of like a energy spirit, whatever it is that you're feeling, and it always kind of brings a centered message home when you're done with that festival, whatever it is, that like we're all people, we're all kind of like energy, like we're all connected in this weird way. We can't really explain it, but we feel that on sometimes these things. And I feel like sometimes when you do enough of that, at a certain point, when you come back to a festival, maybe after the 10th time, whatever it is, you don't necessarily need that because you have that message in you and you've taken that with. And some people don't need those messages because you already understand that. And you could be that way, sober, or be that way in a sense. Or maybe you want to connect back in that way, so you do it. But yeah, I don't know. I think there could be a smarter way to do it. If, like you said, if there was in the future later down the line, if there was some sort of controlled stuff, because the sad part is a lot of the stuff that some people, might take some substances, it might not be what they thought they were going to get. Maybe some people get hurt, or maybe some people have different personalities and like, I'm just going to do 5 or whatever it might be. And that's not smart, So, I would never advocate it, which is why but at the same time, it's like, I think when you do something like that, it's always great to express that open-mindedness, take those risks in a sense, like open your mind to whatever that is that's about to occur. Like, I think those are all beautiful experiences. It's just, and sometimes you have to be smart about it. You have to be safe about it. You have to be ready for it at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your guys' kind of situations on that, or feel about that? If I'm allowed to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if it's fair if we ask you, you can definitely ask.
Yeah, it's not how this works. Like the questions are, the channel of information goes both ways.
Did you murder her?
Yeah, exactly.
No. I think you beautifully said it. It's just like this weird relationship. Like you said, it can be abusive. It can be very healing. And it can be both at the same time. And it's confusing. And I think it's part of what makes this culture what it is. And it also makes this culture what it may want to be in the future. But I think we definitely, I just, with anything in life, I don't think not talking about it is the answer, which I'm not saying anybody in the community doesn't want to talk about it, but it's just like having a genuine conversation about obviously these things are using what we would call recreationally now, but we're seeing a lot of therapeutic benefits from it. How can we maximize that and minimize the harm?
Yeah.
I think it
maximize community, minimize, trying to supplement your emotions through drugs. Yeah. That's what I think it becomes.
There's ways to do it. Like I was lucky enough, my girlfriend and I had an experience where we worked on the ground control team for Insomniac, and there's ways to go about making sure. You can't make sure people are safe, but there's ways to try and keep people safe. Like some of the things you were saying, like having a group leader or something. It's like these things aren't outlandish. We can try to find ways. I think testing booze should be at every festival, illegal or not. That's just so.
Testing one.
You can have a drug test.
Booths.
Yeah, testing booth. Yeah, so you go up and you can get whatever tested. It's like
imagine if you had a kit, there's a place that was almost like you had a med card for marijuana, right? But if you had something where it was kind of similar to that, and you got a baggie to control, because really the only danger from what happens is the amount of information, the lack of information that you have for what it is, the amount maybe or whatever it is, right? And how your body might respond to it, the amount or what's in it. But you said if it was more controlled, it might not be as dangerous, but I do agree with that. It could be an interesting idea, like a testing booth in a sense, very controlled, professional way. Probably see that in the future. I guarantee it in some sort of fashion.
There's some places across the pond overseas they have some certain festivals that already are doing it. Even if it's illegal in the country, it's like a Good Samaritan law essentially. You're able to bring your drugs. You're not going to get in trouble. You get them tested, and they care about safety. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not unimaginable. It's just in the States we're just a little too uptight about it still, I suppose. I don't know.
Wow. That's where tradition fights with I don't know what you can consider as like something either progressing or evolving.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
Tradition, and it's just like trying to turn a blind eye on something that's obviously happening.
Yeah.
Nothing ever good comes from that, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that is wild. I mean, it's funny because, like, other countries like Amsterdam and things like that. I mean, I remember fighting for weed to be legal when I was 17. My morality teacher at a Catholic high school was an ex-cop. I wrote a 9-page paper on the legalization of marijuana. We had to pick a morality issue. I felt like I was an investigator. Like, this was my career. So I did so much research. I got like a 94 on the project. And I was so happy. I thought I was going to get like he was ready to deem this wrong, but I think he was totally working. There was so much stuff. Harry Anslinger, Reefer Madness. This thing was forced to be a bad thing, to look the other way because of the actual benefits that it helped. Weed was going to be, the hemp decorticator was going to be $1 billion product. It was going to take out the lumber business because of how fast you can grow hemp to produce things like clothing and rope and all that stuff. And there was just so many other things that it could have been, and other companies went, oh shit, we're great. So that this is going to happen. And slowly that might happen with things like whether it's these experimental drugs, we'll realize, hey, you don't have to be on Zoloft for your whole life. You can actually just do psilocybin-guided trips for, let's say, a month, and you'll be healed. I'm just throwing it out there like that.
Well, yeah, you got something deep there, though.
Yeah. It's just a small analogy of one thing that actually was going to benefit, but other people saw where they're already making money and saw a threat that could actually help.
Yep.
And it's cheap, and I think there's a lot of things like that where it's like, this thing can actually do this. Yes, it will put this big business out of business. So maybe that's why those things aren't best.
Well, I think it's, you tapped on a lot there too, because I think there's the pharmaceutical companies and then the insurance companies and then how they come in.
Yeah.
Or in relationship, and then it's like their relationship with businesses that end up becoming, either mental health care clinics or, hospitals, because they operate more as businesses in America. And that whole relationship is interesting. And then you insert new healing modalities that are cheaper. But then they how the market works. You're going to wipe out competition, and people aren't perfect, and people have flaws. And they might not think they're being, bad people, but they might be having ripple effects that they're not conscious of, which is an interesting space.
Yeah.
And then that creates a lot of issues where you touched on is maybe you're addressing the symptom through the medication, not the core problem. And then you're not actually helping people heal by integrating with themselves. You're just kind of making them feel less anxious. It's like maybe the anxiety is telling you something. Maybe you should address that as opposed to just trying to numb it away. And then you get the stereotype of the dude on 9 medications that still hates his life, or girl, or what have you, however you identify. And that's an interesting predicament, because ideally what that medication is supposed to do through release good, we both work in mental health care. But the predicament I usually see is the good therapists and the good clinicians and good medical workers are usually like that medication is a tool to help you get to a better place. It's not supposed to be like, it helps you regulate, but use it as a lever, not as like a savior. And I think sometimes people start treating it either culturally or, they start getting trained to prescribe it like it's supposed to save you. Maybe that's not what that's for. And then that wasn't really what it was designed for. It's supposed to help you regulate. It's complicated. I'm waxing philosophic right now, but it gets complicated when you have like really more abnormal psychological conditions, though, because we don't like schizophrenia or personality disorders or these other things, because there's no real place for them in our society. Whereas depression is just like, well, get through it, But like schizophrenia, it's like you're not acting like we're supposed to have humans act in a well-adjusted society, and that's where it starts getting bizarre. So you just numb the fuck out of them to get them to act normal, or get rid of the voices, tell them they're not real. Who knows, man?
That was wild. I heard an interesting theory about schizophrenia from someone who claims to be somewhat connected to the spiritual realm. It was a really interesting idea because it touched on something that didn't seem so science-based related, but more spiritual, whereas the schizophrenic took a step back and sort of thinking that it's like a person developing 7 personalities, that this person operates on a way where their brain is open to a different plane of existence.
Yeah.
Those different voices are actually possession from other spirits, or things like that, or spirits being entered into it, and that it's a vessel for these other souls, or something, right? Other energy, spirits, whatever you might call it, instead of like just the person has split up their consciousness into 7, which I thought was an interesting idea, and then taking it to think of like mental illness and how the brain can work, and you know how some people have like stronger intuition, or whether they're like not telepathic, but like maybe a little bit psychic, or there's little anomalies, you know, things like that, where the brain is really powerful and misunderstood, where these things could be explaining spiritual realms in a sense, you know. Nothing proven yet, but I just think it's interesting to think about that idea in a different way in life, you know.
100%. A lot of climbs culturally too. People with schizophrenia were typically like spiritual people or shamans, or they were vessels to connect with other things, and they would give it, and they'd get like nurtured in the culture. Whereas we kind of in our culture, I think, ostracize it because it's not well adjusted. Well adjusted is great, but like also, I mean, people are people, and there's different frequencies. So I think that's good to acknowledge that too.
Broad statement, but I mean, obviously, dealing with mental health issues is a challenge, but I don't think it's a problem. I think the problem is the society, and then the mental health symptoms are just that. Like, there's symptoms that some
issues addressing to society for whatever it is.
And it doesn't mean that person like can't still live a life with those symptoms, which I think is why it's so terrible that our society ostracizes them. It's like
having the symptoms.
I mean, these things have been prevalent in, you know, we didn't just as a society start developing these, you know, syndromes and symptoms. Like, I'm sure that always existed to a certain extent. It's just how we interact with them as a society, you know, with people that are going through these type of things, you know. There's an interesting theory, I don't know, you might know more about it than I, but essentially, how bipolar disorder is like a driving force of human species, how people in like certain manic states have been people that have like developed some of the leading ideas or have kept us.
We're hypomania, dude.
Yeah.
A lot of people are hypomanic, I think, without acknowledging it.
And then like anxious people keep us safe because they're hyper aware of things that are going on that maybe the average person may not even be aware of.
Isn't it interesting that certain emotional states are considered not good to have?
Yeah.
Like, you can't be sad.
No.
Like, yeah, you can.
It's labeling the human experience.
Yeah.
Experience is more of those things. Oh, you have anxiety, or you have this. It's just all the human experience, maybe, you know, and it's just labeled on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like maybe just let, of course, if it's inhibiting you from living the type of life you want, then I think that person should address it.
Yeah.
Like the life they want.
Yeah, I think you touched on that big issue where it was like, you know, a lot of the things are just trying to alleviate or treat the symptoms instead of prevention. It mind boggles me that doctors study about 2 weeks in nutrition when they get their MD, when nutrition is almost the foundation of prevention for a lot of ailments and diseases, you know. Instead, it's like, here's Xarelto, here's this.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, a lot of it even prevent these things from, I don't know, just basic education, nutrition, or things like that. You know, so it's definitely interesting out there.
Yeah. I've heard that the classic MD route does like a week's worth of
mental health
as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Usually the idea too there, and this is, I haven't looked too much and read too much into this like argument, but it's that it's usually, it sounds conspiratorial, but it's like more special interest. Who's the special interest? I mean, like, it's more, you know, where the money is and who created the businesses, and then them wanting to keep a market advantage. So, like, they train doctors to prescribe medications because that's kind of within their interest as a company, as opposed to teaching people how to live good lives and take care of themselves. And that's kind of how our medical model is designed. But then you see this resurgence in culture now that Chef Anthony is bringing up, where it's like, is that you want to teach people how to live healthy lives and kind of go bottom up, you know, where you're like, you teach people how to eat healthy, how to, you know, turn their bodies on, live healthy, and that might kind of eradicate a lot of the issues. But same token, you still want a knee surgeon when you tear your ACL. So you can't really, you know, predict for that. So it's good that it's not all evil. That's why it's not conspiratorial. You know, we need that. But maybe we can tweak.
My cousin's a doctor for sure, and he said the thing that episode the most is how to diagnose.
Yeah.
You know, like you got a lump in you, you want to go to someone.
Figure out what that lump is. Yeah.
Lump is, right? Take that biopsy. You don't want to be like, eat some asparagus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, he's going to get rid of this lump. It's bigger than it was before. So there definitely are those things, and I do agree with you. There is somewhat imbalance or structural that is more like, let's find out what you have, put a name to it, and give you this.
Yeah.
So that does need to be taken care of, but there are definitely things that we do that are in place that we like and that we still need.
It's like finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
Not over-prescribing, and that's maybe the machine's working too well to an extent, like it's too efficient. So it's like, I'm no more diagnoses, I'm done. Just let me eat my asparagus, and I'll come back when I have a lump, and then please diagnose that, and then let's address it.
I'm curious, how did your marijuana project go over with your cop teacher?
So they got 94.
I got 94. Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, I was so proud of it, bro. I was like, no. But everyone was like, dude, it's Mr. Larson. Like, he's the morality teacher of the school. Like, he was very, he was really cool because he was really religious, but at the same time, he was really into, science and information at the same time. And I admire the guy for his dedication in research, whether I agree with a lot of the stuff he dwelled on about institutional religion and things like that, but he was really interesting because he just went into the science of the atoms in the cell and information. He somehow always found some interesting parallel to whatever it was in the morality, whether it was the Bible or some other story or whatever it was. He was interesting at the least. I don't always agree with him, but in 94, everyone was like, "What is it?" It's weed, but it was a cop, and he was just he'd be well researched, and I was like, "Oh." This cop is giving me a 94 when I talked about how the FBI, the war on drugs, was a sham. The lumber industry in the beginning of the 60s, the 50s. I was like, let's go, man. I guess I did my work.
That's cool. Respect to that guy. I think we need more of that.
Respect to that guy. Someone who has a side and opinion on something, but is willing to admit when someone worked hard and okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I think we need more of that in this world. Just people that having a strong belief. I don't think is the devil. It's not the worst thing in the world. You're convicted, that's cool. But be open to nuance. Be open to other opinions. Be open to be proven wrong.
Yeah, or don't write people off because their opinions are different.
Yeah,
I think that's super good. But
absolutely.
I agree with that.
We definitely deviated from music or anything related.
No, you're bringing right back in. No.
We did, but it was interesting.
I like swimming in the pool with you guys. Yay! So much.
I got one if you go.
I got one right here. I actually wanted to take us. You had an interview with Voyage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to talk on a couple of things that you talked about in that interview. You talked about falling in love with music. You actually told us about that experience, but I really thought it was interesting when you talked about your concept of moving from dabbler to professional to master. Can you go into some detail? I thought that was a beautiful idea. Can you kind of go into detail about your relationship with that philosophy and how that kind of has guided your professional life?
I think it's first I'd like to paint a picture think of you're just looking at a graph, and the graph is a parabola. So it kind of comes from a level of growth. You can picture a graph, and when you start out, you're on the very bottom. Whether that be learning baseball, music, or golf, right? I'll use music and golf because it's a really good correlation. You start out, it's all fresh, it's all new. You start learning new things. One thing that you did on Monday, you might be so much better on Friday. Just comparing. Not saying you're the best, right? But the level of maybe what you can do more, if you dive into it gets better. But you're still a beginner. Everything's fresh. You're learning a lot at the same time. But eventually you get to a stage where you're not just having fun with it. You're dabbling a lot in it. You become this dabbler, which means that you're not a professional, you're not a master, but you do a lot in it. And you've learned a lot, and you're at this stage. But in order to get to the next level, if you desire to get to the next level, a lot of people don't want to. So a lot of people that I know that are friends, like my friend, he likes to be a dabbler in music. He's not trying to pursue it as a career. but it's something that he likes to enjoy. Sometimes after a day of work, he'll just make a nice little tune, play something on the piano, and that's it. That's satisfying. Right? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But if someone that wants to maybe think of taking it as a career, understanding the idea of diminishing returns when it comes to things that you want to do, like musician or learn anything like golf, is that as you keep going higher in the graph from dabbler, professional to master, it requires more time for a less gain in percentage to get that much better. Meaning, if I'm Tiger Woods, let's say, example, and I'm a dabbler, I'm not Tiger Woods yet, like the one that we know, but I'm 16-year-old Tiger Woods or whatever it is. I have to play, let's say, 30 games to get just 1% better. Whereas as a beginner, you only have to play maybe 5 games to get, let's say, 5% better. But as you keep getting better and better, you need to put in more hours to get, unfortunately, just a tiny bit better. And the difference between the dabbler, the professional, or the professional, the master, is that they are just this percent better. They're just 1% better. But that 1% to get to that 1% takes 5,000 or 10,000 more hours, if that makes any sense. And the way I think I like to apply it to anything is that for anyone that wants to be a master at anything, you have to come to the fact that you're going to have to put in so much work to the person next to you who's also doing that same thing just to be a little bit better. But that little bit better sometimes is the thing that defines the difference between the pro and the master, or the dabbler and the master. And I think it comes to, you have to come to a realization that you're not going to be getting the reward and satisfaction that you were getting at the beginner to dabbler stage. There's so much reward and satisfaction at that stage. Like you're starting, a year goes by, you're like, oh my gosh, I got these new tracks, like I'm just getting so much better. And then diminishing returns and getting better to start increasing, and you're just like, oh crap, I'm plateauing. But that tiny little bump, which is like 5,000 hours, then 5,000 hours, really isn't that much difference, I feel like, between the master and the pro, but it's so hard to get just that little bit up. But that's what gets you to the masters. You know, that's what separates a professional PGA Tour winner, is getting that birdie instead of that bogey, right? Yeah. It's just wait, 1 or 2 hits, right? But they practice 10,000 more hours, 20,000 more hours just to get that extra guaranteed extra hole in one, right, or whatever it was. And I just think the whole idea is that it's explanation of instant gratification culture is not it's gonna be your enemy, right? And if you really want to be a master in trade, you have to love it to the point that you know that putting in 20 hours in that week when you're already at a really good level, on a professional level, it's not going to make you a master. You're going to have to keep doing that, but don't be slaving over it. Yeah. If you know that, like, if you know that philosophy and that idea, and you still love what you're doing, you won't even be counting the hours. Like, okay, 30 more hours, I got to be a master eventually. You'll just keep doing it. Mm-hmm. And if you're doing it more, though, you will break that. You will break through that. And I think that's what separates some people. Is that I think some people just stop and they either settle whatever craft that it is because they want to see that return. And I think if you're aware of that idea of the dabbler philosophy, diminishing returns, becoming the difference between the master and things like that, and you're aware of that, and you know that, and you enjoy putting in those hours, and it doesn't matter about the reward, because it's falling in love with the process of doing it. You gotta love that practice more than the outcome, you know.
That makes
hopefully that explains. It was kind of all over the place, but
that's great. That's great.
So, right? It's just the constant work for the small percentage.
Yeah.
But that small percentage is the difference between the master and the pro.
Yeah, and a really interesting point too about how the jumps in competence is kind of an awkward word, but like the skill jumps get smaller with time because there's more. You see that in a lot of fields too. If it's even like weightlifting, you know, you can start gaining a lot of muscle and strength in a short period of time. Then you start lifting heavy weight, and it's literally like 5 pounds. You add 5 pounds on it, it's like 2 more pounds. And it's just like it's inch, but like everybody who's into it can really see it at that point. They see that like that dude put like that much more weight on, even if it's like 5 more pounds. It's like, damn. It's like his form was good still, damn. And it's cool seeing that like that translates to other professions or like music. It's just that little minute change, but you put so many more hours in to get to that point. Awesome.
No, I think the body is the best way to explain a lot of things. You can ground to transforming your body dedication or using mobility muscles. So it's like the root foundation of so many other things that you can apply to it. I really do like that analogy. It's true, man. Like if you've been weightlifting all your life and you've been benching 100-pound dumbbells for 5 reps, and now you can do 8 with 105 or just 100. That's huge.
Yeah.
You know, like that's so impressive. Like to just do that much more, even though it's so small. That's a perfect example.
Yeah. Whereas like first 6 months lifting, it's like 10 more pounds. You look different. You can like lift way more. It's awesome. It's that newbie stage. I love that stage.
Yeah. It's great. You feel fantastic. When you hit that plateau, it's the same shit.
Yep. Or you like bump back into dabbler, then professional, then dabbler. And it's like you can go down too. Just like, and that's where I think that's where the habits come in. So you got to like maintain and then create your identity around that and keep climbing, you know?
That's a good point to make, is that consistency is probably super essential into getting to that master level in a sense.
Yeah.
You know, it's whatever it is, it's almost muscle memory or like brain muscle memory at the same time.
Yeah.
Exercise. Very important factor into that.
Definitely. And if I remember correctly too, when you were talking about this concept before, you mentioned the idea of pain being a part of that, and I think that's something I don't know. I can't say a lot of people, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about some of the pain and struggle that goes into, you know, their craft. It's just like, oh, you make music, that's cool, it must be so fun, but there is a different side of it. Can you talk about the relationship with that idea?
Yeah, I think when I touched on that, I think it has to do with battling inner demon in itself.
Yeah.
It's like battling insecurity, battling self-doubt, all those things that make you feel like you're not good enough in a sense, right? Or a hard critic in your brain. I think that's what the pain is. And I think there's beauty in that, but at the same time, because a lot of people may not deal with that, and I'm not saying it's good to deal with that, but I do think it's beneficial to deal with that sometimes, maybe earlier, maybe not too early, but at some point, you know, I feel like that does build strength and character to prepare you for maybe bigger things that might happen in your life in the future. But I think having that experience with music in itself, having that pain and self-doubt makes you stronger in the long run, because there's these periods where you feel like that, and then, you know, if you continue on and you don't let that defeat you and you overcome that obstacle, which is yourself, then you have this moment of confidence and experience, and you feel the power of that, and you decide to focus your energy on that power instead of the power of negativity, which is a strong power in itself. I think it teaches a lot about, like, you need to know the pain in order to know the good, and when you know the good and what the good can do, you can focus on that. It's kind of like you can't have rainbows without a little rain, right? Like you have to. It's good to have that pain in order to learn to be confident. It's hard to explain, but at least in my experience, it's like I had to learn those little demons in my head and how to defeat them, so that now whenever I come across them in the future, I know how to defeat them in an easy way, or they won't even come up in a way because I've ignored them. I haven't put so much focus on them. Because there's some people that, you know, maybe their life is, they don't have any issues, and then something bad happens and they're a wreck.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm making a generalization, but like, you know, I think music, it's fun to have this little inner battle, not fun, but it's interesting to have this little inner battle when you're starting out, having your self-doubt, you're trying to sash this and this, and never be good enough, because if you keep pursuing it, you will find success, because you're going to see that growth. You're going to turn from that beginner to the dabbler, and you know for a fact, whatever that is, sculpting music, you're going to be so happy and proud of yourself when you feel that jump. You know, you get validation from some friends, electronics, something else, and it's like, oh shit. And then you feel the power of that confidence and love and like inner peace and inner love and love yourself. And you're like, this is way more powerful. And this is something that I want to do a lot more than this other guy that was in my head. But I had to feel that to know how to beat it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, you wouldn't get that if you weren't able to persist through the pain.
Well, it's almost like you got to recognize the problem, or not even that it's a problem. You got to recognize the phenomena, if you want to make it broad, before you can address it. So you have to acknowledge it as a thing, and then
you can experience it and address it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like the contrast, like you said. So it's like there's the white, which is like, you know, you're in your flow, but you got to acknowledge that there's that resistance, you know, and then ultimately there's whatever it is that you're doing, emerging. Yeah. The emergent thing that comes out of it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that to not keep that under the carpet, but to more how to deal with it and recognize it when you see it, because there's always going to be a balance. I firmly believe there's always a positive and negative energy that's somewhat displaced in the world. Matter, antimatter, so high frequencies, you know, low frequencies, whatever that may be. And instead of trying to kick it under the rug, know how to deal with it when it comes back into place. Yeah. So you don't dwell on it and it takes over. So have the balance of when it comes in, reconcile it. No, maybe it's trying to tell you something. Deal with it, and then it won't take you over. It does for some people, you know.
I wonder if you relate to this. I heard this from an interview with Miley Cyrus, of all people. I love Miley Cyrus, but she's talking about how she feels that pain in her life, she can like plainly see when she's gone through some traumas, how that deepen the character and her emotional relation to her art. Like, do you think that is the same with? She was talking specifically about her voice. Like, she felt like her voice got more mature and more, like, I don't know, relatable after she'd gone through these traumas or pains. Do you feel like can that be similar with music production and producing again and things like that?
Yeah, I think so. To me, it sounded like what she was doing, at least from my experience, is that she was becoming more relatable because the unspoken thing about people having trauma in their lives was being expressed through her new music, and that's why it was relatable, because there was this human experience that everyone was feeling, whether it was like they were trying to be this good, proper person, and then now they're kind of just rebelling, and now they're coming like a wrecking ball or whatever, you know, like, I feel like that's why maybe people were relating more and connecting, and I feel like that has a way of tying itself into the Indian culture, probably in that way of like, I'm not in that conversation I'm having before, I'm not going to stick in my own lane, like I'm just going to like, fuck, I'm going to drop this, like in a sense. Whether that's maybe they had trauma experience of like being forced to make this because they're on a label contract or the man that was forced to do this one thing, or I don't know, but I do feel that it's just kind of about self-expression, and people on the receiving end do that or feel that. But it's harder. It's harder to get that across. Yeah. The culture, if there's no actual vocal or voice from that artist on that, but you know, you can still paint that picture in a production. But there's definitely more in the caption or description of the track or the conversation about the EP or song on Twitter that has to play a role into maybe getting that idea across than just the track itself. But yeah. So it somewhat ties into it, I think.
Cool. And we also had another quote from you if we want to touch on it. I also boil my pasta in Pepto-Bismol before adding shoelaces and blade blades as topping.
Oh yeah, so like the titles never have the right correlations to microphone cables, but like if you really think about Dell computers, they're just way overbooked compared to potato towels and the essential like department system of knobs. Like knobs are way overstimulated. We need to focus on compartmentalizing shoeboxes and bringing them to mouse wheels.
Absolutely. We're on the same page.
Agree, yeah,
that's great.
That was well said, sir. Well fucking said. I know for a fact that it's going to be a promotional bit. So, on that lighter note, while we were trolling your Instagram, I don't know if obsession is the right word, but I found that you have a very strong affinity with baked beans. Can you talk to us about what started?
Love that, bro. I went plant-based basically like 2 years of my life in college.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, I did all that, and it was a really fun experience. I actually was like the healthiest in my life. And I ate beans. I ate every bean, and that was also when I got a lot more into cooking. I was always cooking, but I got more into it because I was like, all right, now I got a limited set of tools, but what I thought was limited was actually expanding. It's funny. Like, you think of like you're going to cut all these things out, there's going to be less that you're going to eat. However, when I was confined by a box, it was more of like, what can I do with this? And it explored. I found fruits I didn't know about, found beans I had no idea about. Like I found out more food than I knew before.
Yeah.
But and I just delved in beans, so many beans, baked beans, tons of beans, pinto beans. To this day, I love my beans. I was pissed off the other day. I was at Super King, and there was a homeless man coming up to me, and he was like, "Hey man, can you spare any food?" And I was like, "Sure." And I grab a can of beans because I'm always getting my beans. I'm like, "You have some beans?" Like, I don't want beans. And I'm like, have a good day, sir. I put it back, and I remember I was like, okay, I guess I'm eating some shitty ass food. I was like, no, but I just love beans. My friend Michael McNulty, shout out McNutt, we just would send memes all the time, and we just dwelled in it. We would put baked beans in our swimming goggles. We would put them on. Love it. Beans and Parmesan is the name of the game. We
put Parmesan on beans?
Yeah.
Okay.
We bring Parmesan. We went to a festival with my friend, and we brought in a giant craft of Parmesan. And we were just dishing out Parmesan. I put Parmesan on my face, and we're called the Parm Game. We bring little packets of Parmesan. Drink live. But then we were like handing out cup. We're like, no, dude, it's Parmesan.
You get stopped by undercover cop. Like that.
Yeah. We got the Parm, bro.
That's wonderful. What don't let me ask him what it sounds like you're no longer plant-based. So what happened there?
Oh, it's environment. Like,
okay.
I will lean towards more of that. I'm trying to do that soon, but I was living on my own in college at that time, away, and that environment stimulates more individual choices. Like, it's just your own picnic or your fridge, things like that, right? And then coming home after college and things like that, before moving out to a place after college, you have that fridge that was slowly introduced where things were just being in the fridge. Or my Italian mother was an amazing cook, making all these things and smelling them. It wasn't something where I was like, at college back, I mean, in the state, it was like very slowly introduced. And it's funny to look back on that and think like how much environment dictates your behavior.
Yeah.
The people you hang around, or just in that certain behavior, what you eat, things like that. It really is, environment based, really nurture based. It's funny, like when you're by yourself, I was making that decision based on the information that I was looking up, researching, and things like that, and then not being tempted or just, I don't know, influenced, I guess. There's no influence when you're kind of, I wasn't in solitude.
Right.
There was there was just a more of individual choice when it came to the fridge of the pantry. But I still slowly introduce that. It's funny. It's hard to take those things out of the equation again, because you can realize that they are like culturally addictive or whatever it is. I mean, cheese is casing morphins, and it's actually physically addictive like crack. Which is great, but
it stimulates the same receptors as heroin, I believe.
No way.
Yeah.
That's why I love cheese so much.
Yeah. I love cheese. I'm obsessed with cheese.
Yeah.
Parmesan, I'll eat it from a spoon. But yeah, it's got casein morphins in it. It's developed from like a casein protein, and it's kind of really, it just like sends, I don't know if it's serotonin or dopamine or whatever, but it sends a lot of it, and your brain likes it and it craves it when it's seen. That's why pizza's like the best thing ever. Are one of you plant-based at all, or remember word?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's done like stints of it, but it's
yeah.
seems difficult to sustain. But I think you hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of it's just simply because environmental factors. If you go out to eat and it may not be the best of options, you're like, shoot, well.
Yeah, but it's like, it's funny because you find a bunch of different science out there. It's ever evolving, like you could look at a plant beside like, this is the key. And then you look at keto and you're like, this is biohacking the body. This is good. Like,
I was big on that for a while, dude. I got shredded. I got shredded, man. That was fucking sick. I just fucking lean all the time. I felt great, man. I mean, like, there's stints where I felt pretty dizzy, but like, most of the time it was great. It was awesome.
Yeah, I will never promote that, but I will promote fasting on photography. Or I think I'm pronouncing it right, but the body's when it's like it's producing ketones. It's been like almost 48 hours, and now your body is like, we don't have anything to digest, nothing to do. Let's start eating dead cells. It's in repair mode. We're rarely in repair mode. Like, we're always in like digest. Photography, if I'm pronouncing it right or whatever, is a good thing. I recommend definitely people do it at least once a month or something like that. Just fast for 48 hours.
Yeah. Or like sometimes people do 3 or 4. It's cool. It's doing it correctly, I think, is the key too. Making sure that all your measurements are right. It's something I never got into, but I want to. It's just making sure that I don't know what the exact measurement is, ketones, and then you'll kind of like see
it. Yeah. You don't want to go over your certain moles, and you want to make sure you're not the refeeding phase is like you're eating a lot. Like you want to reintroduce solids, paste, hot liquids.
Yeah, and then not fat bombing. I think that's a big one too. Like people just like dumps it. I'm guilty of that, man. It's like cheese and olive oil and avocado oil, and it's egg. And then I'll be like, this is my diet. It's like cool.
It's all a learning experience, but I feel that.
Yeah, and then the cholesterol just like goes through the roof, and like your lipids are really high and get dangerous. Well, sir, I mean, is there anything else?
No, this is incredible.
It's been a joy having you on. You were an immensely creative human being and extremely articulate and talented. It's great sharing space with you and talking with you. Before we end this today and we go our separate ways, where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? What can they expect with you? To see coming from you, coming up here, and then how can they become part of your community and join you as an artist and what you're producing and become part of your family?
I love that. They can follow me on my Instagram and Twitter. You can type in It's WHZLY. It's the same thing everywhere. You'll be able to find me there. For anyone else that's watching, DM me on Instagram or Twitter. Those things, I love just talking to people in DMs if you ever want to chat and anything like that. Like, that's the best place to find me. Upcoming stuff, I got a song coming out in about a week with the Erratic Kids coming out on the Cool Bubbleaholics. That's going to be a fun one. We have 2 more tracks coming out next year. And then we are slowly working on an EP. It's going to be really fun. And get prepared for like the wonky stuff here and there. I will be blending still, kind of like my love for a little bit of high energy, but with like just a heavy bass. So and like I said, if anyone's interested in learning, chatting, I'm always down for mentorship. So just hanging out, asking questions. I'm always down to hop on the Zoom call, make a friend. So Instagram, Twitter, It's WHZLY. Just DM me there.
Are you on Discord as well?
I am on Discord. Yeah, I'm on Discord as well. Same thing, WHZLY. We're building something slowly. We're going to try to build a community sometime in the year 2022, so next year. To kind of create and bring a home base for that people, for like, people that community in a sense. So, I'm excited to build that up.
Right on, sir.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
really has.
It was a pleasure talking to you guys about a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So good. All right, sir.
Well, cheers.
Cheers, yeah.
Cheers, yes.
Ding.
And that is our conclusion of our talk with Anthony Souza. I absolutely love that we get the opportunity to sit down and share these uncut and in-depth conversations with people like Anthony. And it's exciting to think about the growth and potential to create beautiful things that these people possess. Please consider checking out WHZLY's music and supporting him in his artist journey. You can also keep tabs on his latest announcements by following him on all social media, all of which are under his artist name of WHZLY, spelt out WHZLY. If you liked the episode and the conversation we had, and would like to hear more of them with other incredible people like Anthony, please subscribe to our podcast and follow us on all social media at DJ Coffee Talk Podcasts. And as always, until next time, stay caffeinated.